AEW All Out 2022 is in the books. What did y'all think of the show? I'm going to need some letter and number grades right off the bat in the chat. I'm curious how people are going to react to the show. I think it was slightly controversial at times with a couple of match outcomes. The main event, of course, we're going to talk about in great detail. Some would consider this quite predictable, maybe a letdown in some ways. In some ways, we got exactly everything we wanted. Of course, the big controversy surrounding the AEW title match, which we did not foresee happening. And, a lot of other surprises, but a really overall fun night of wrestling, I thought. Very long card here, 15 matches in total. I think 4 on the buy-in and 11 on the main card. So this show was long, and that was a topic of conversation among a lot of wrestling fans. And I get it. It's the same type of conversations we've had about WrestleManias in the past, how they can tend to go very long, kind of burn the crowd out, and was AEW overdoing it? In my mind, I've been a wrestling fan for so long, these type of things don't bother me. WrestleManias 4, 5, and 6 had a minimum of 14 matches on the main card alone each. So I don't recall ever getting mad about something like that. But once you had if you have a pay-per-view the very next or the very day before, like we did yesterday with Clash at the Castle, it can be a little much. So that will probably come up here a couple of times during the review as we talk about some of the match placement here. Some matches found themselves in terrible positions, having to follow really, really great moments or great matches or whatever. But, overall, like somebody said in the chat, this might be a rare miss for AEW. I even maybe jinxed it when I put on Twitter today that this was the 14th pay-per-view I have purchased from AEW. I think they're 15th overall, but I was at Double or Nothing this year, so I didn't buy that one. And I purchased 14 of them, and I don't recall being disappointed ever. And I wouldn't consider myself disappointed tonight, but I think maybe I expected a few more waves to be made. I was really shocked the storyline direction. It appeared like they were going in with CM Punk, him getting absolutely annihilated by Jon Moxley, just to have the come from behind underdog hometown babyface hero victory over Moxley. I was kind of hoping for a swerve, maybe a heel turn, something like that, but then all the MJF rumors started, the casino ladder match speculation, and the more of that was going around, the more fans, I think, started leaning towards the possibility that Punk was just going to straight up win this title as a babyface, not go heel or nothing. And, of course, we saw what happened at the end. I thought they set up the casino ladder match pretty cool with MJF and the Mask and Malcolm Bivens and that whole faction they seemed to be creating there, and now MJF has this, literal shield, perhaps even fighting for him, or, maybe he just enlisted Stokely's help for one night. But that whole thing was really well done, because I think if he would have came out just flat out as the Joker in the ladder match, then that would have made the main event even that much more, I guess, predictable, because there's money to be made in CM Punk and MJF for the title. So if MJF revealed himself as the winner of the Casino Battle Royal, or the Casino Ladder match, then I think the fans would have said, well, Punk's definitely winning now. So maybe that's why they went in the direction they did, tying it all together with the Devil line and the Rolling Stones and all that stuff. I thought was really well done. So that I liked, and there was lots on this show to like, but also maybe a couple of things that weren't so good, and we'll get to all of your feedback on that as we go through here. I want to welcome everybody to our AEW All Out review. Please do me a favor, since there's a lot of competition on YouTube tonight, and my likes have been hurting for certain, so please hook me up with a like, a measly 21 in here right now. Please get those numbers up for me. I would appreciate it. And thank you for being here this evening. It's been quite the weekend. Yesterday, I thought Clash at the Castle was a great show. They just really let us down at the end, and they gave us the bizarre karaoke finish there with Tyson Fury and Drew McIntyre. So I was hoping we would get, maybe a better show tonight with a few less letdowns. But I think AEW largely did what WWE did yesterday. They delivered a great show, but maybe there were some decisions made that we would have done differently as fans or something like that. So I wouldn't categorize either show this weekend as bad, but I probably would admit I was expecting more out of both, if that makes any sense. So we'll see what you guys have to say about that. Let me cruise over here to the chat and say hello to everybody that's waiting. A lot of channel members in the house tonight. Zach Palgett, good to see you. Tatanani is here as well. Right on. Zelius Ward, Sunny Man. We got Destiny. How Wheezy is in the house. We got Monkey Wrenches. We got channel family members. Population 420 is here. Good to see ya. Also, Effin' Raw, Ram K, Lola, Six, Sil, Zix, Ram K, 951 Dave, Yessi Hernandez, Max Pokebra, another channel member in the house, and another channel member, Spectra. Thank you very much for that $10 super chat drop. This is the comment that I mentioned earlier. Rare miss tonight. I kind of agree with that. Bad by AEW standards. Mox shouldn't have had the match 2 weeks ago if this was the plan. Casino ladder match and sucked. Luchasaurus heel turn sucked since it happened already. 3 out of 5. Okay, I can accept that. The Luchasaurus heel turn I thought was kind of cool the way it was pulled off. The way Jungle Boy was looking in the babyface tunnel and Lucha came out of the heel tunnel. I thought that was really well done. And I loved the caginess, no pun intended, of Christian Cage. He came out with the shirt, worked everyone. I know a lot of people saw the Luchasaurus heel turn coming again because they started it. Then when he went back babyface, they never really took him out of that darker gear. They went through the trouble of kind of rebranding him. So many fans felt like they were going to go back to that. And I was curious if after they turned him back face, if they looked back on it and said, whoa, we actually had something there with that heel persona. Let's go back to it. Or if this was the plan all along. And it was probably the plan all along. Christian did a great job being a heel and messing with Jungle Boy's family and all of that. I really enjoyed that match way more than I thought because it does set up a big return. And, of course, we got Arthur Ashe down the road. So I didn't mind so much his heel turn, but I do think, yeah, it was a little bit on the predictable side. But I'm happy that they did that instead of Jungle Boy with the hard-fought, match and babyface victory because there was enough of that going on this show. I don't think the casino ladder match end sucked either because I kind of liked the fact that a bunch of guys, I thought it was Retribution hitting the ring and with Stokely Hathaway going up there and retrieving the poker chip. And I'm like, Stokely, only for MJF to come down in the mask. It was pretty obvious to most people that was him. It was the same size. It resembled him a lot, but I questioned if it was even going to be the same person under the mask, if this was something AEW was going to choose to reveal down the road, like on Wednesday or maybe a week or two down the road. Then you reveal who's under the mask, like the Black Scorpion type of deal or the Higher Power or whatever, and they take their time with it. Then I thought, well, there could be anybody under the mask. It might not need to really analyze the mannerisms because whoever they reveal might not be that particular person, but they wound up revealing it tonight anyway, and we don't have to wait until Wednesday, and I think that makes everything better. So I didn't hate the ending of that. I thought it was different, and it was something we haven't really seen before, and it was MJF, taking advantage of this opportunity. And as we would hear the answering machine voicemail, MJF apparently has an answering machine still, but once we heard that from TK, putting the pieces together, how MJF made this happen, I thought is going to be pretty fun to watch play out on TV. But overall, yeah, I think we've seen better from AEW than we did tonight. I certainly will admit that. 7 out of 10 for Super Fluffy Toaster. Ram K gives it an 8. I can be down with a solid C+ here. If I'm being kind, I'll give it a B-. But I'm certainly not giving it a D or an F or anything like that. No way. No way. Yeah, it was long, but let me see. The pay-per-view, well, the main card started at 5 p.m. for me, ended a little bit after 9, so about 4 hours plus. Plus you had the hour kickoff. That's 5.5 hours. I don't think that's long for SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania's All Outs. I think that might be long for Full Gears or Hell in the Cells or things like that. So maybe these bigger shows, you can justify having them longer, but I think a lot of this, when you compare it to the pay-per-view that was on the day before and Castlevania only having 6 matches, this one has 15. That's only 3 shy of triple the amount of matches. You're not going to have fans not talking about that. But for me, I'm a wrestling fan, and watching a whole bunch of wrestling on my day off is really not the worst thing a human being can go through, So complaining about how long the shows are or how many matches are is not something I do a whole lot of, but also, granted, I'm on the West Coast. It's a lot easier. It's a lot earlier for me. It's 9:30 at night. It's 12:30 if you guys live on the East Coast. God knows what time it is. If you're across the pond or if you're in Europe or wherever, a lot of people have work the next day. Everybody starts Mondays. I always have Mondays off, so I never have a case of the Mondays. The case of the Mondays that I get is a really good disease to have because I love it. But I understand that other people have different lives, and staying up late like that can kind of be a pain in the ass, especially if you want to follow wrestling, you want to see what happens, you're interested in the main event, but you got to stay up until the next day to find out the finish of the main event when you got to get up at 6 hours and go to work. So I totally understand it from that point of view. But for me, I kind of I've always enjoyed watching pay-per-view wrestling on Sundays once a month, and I am rarely going to complain about the amount of matches there are, especially if it really overstays. For the amount of matches we had, I think getting it done in 4 hours and 4 hours flat, I think. Just a couple of minutes after the top of the hour, they finished up. So that many matches, 11 matches in 4 hours, I don't really think is that bad. Maybe I'm in the minority of that. Now, if this show would have gone 5 hours, or if it would have gone 5.5 and it really ran long and you approach the 5 hour mark here, then you add the hour on the kickoff. Now you're talking about 6 hours. I get that. But getting 11 matches in 4 hours, I think they deserve pretty good credit for the timing of the show and getting everything in that amount of time. So that's one argument we're probably going to discuss tonight or see tonight or hear tonight that I personally don't have really an issue with. It's rare that I'm going to complain from either company about the show being too long. Even with WrestleMania, I think I acknowledge that it was long, but that's kind of the point, is to have a long show and suck it up. Just get the energy to do it. That's my opinion on it. Let me knock out any more hellos, that type of stuff, and then we'll start getting into the results of the show once people start entering the chat and stuff. Spectra, I did get yours. Let me also say hello to Yachiro and Andrew T. Domination's in the house. Right on. Mango Salsa is here. Christian, Paul, Maddie, FRGN, 7 out of 10, slightly controversial, but MJF's return was great. I hear you. I'm with you there. Talal, we have Mike Witt, channel member, in the house. Good to see you, man. And, oh, God, I don't know why you got that deleted. Oh, God, Punk is going off on Hangman, Colt, and the EVPs in the media scrum. Is this happening for real? Is this real-time shit that's going down right now? We'll hold off on the match-by-match reviews here for a minute, but... here's a couple of guys mentioning that. CM Punk burying Colt Cabana on the all-out media scrum. Wow. He's burying him? If he's burying him on the media scrum, that almost makes me think that there's going to be an angle happening or some shit. I mean, think about it. That guy chanted Colt Cabana and Punk called him a fatso or whatever on Dynamite. Now he's going off on Colt Cabana here. I have pitched the idea of Colt Cabana getting involved with CM Punk before. Maybe like almost a year ago, 8-9 months ago, whatever he was doing. I was like, what if Cabana comes in and only the insiders know about this stuff? Only the fans that follow the behind-the-scenes stuff. We're the only ones that kind of know about that gnarly situation. And what if they brought Colt into this and Punk and him made nice and they made amends and they're back friends again? And they said, well, we might as well take advantage of this and make some serious money. And maybe that's what they're doing here, or maybe Punk just still fucking hates Colt Cabana and he's burying him in front of the media. That's really weird. I'm curious to hear those comments once that happens. Very curious to hear what he said there, but that's interesting stuff. Anywho, Zane G, appreciate the $5 from you, dude. Maybe a possible Braun Strowman return tomorrow night. I wonder how they'll factor him in. Yes, as a matter of fact, we're going to be up here for a Monday Night Raw review tomorrow night, immediately after the show. The crew has got to be tired. The talent has got to be burnt out, but they're back from overseas, and they're going to be doing Monday Night Raw tomorrow. And Braun Strowman is rumored to be on the show, so he could return in some way and offer some big surprise. It's a post-pay-per-view Raw, technically, so hopefully some big things will go down, and we will be up here to talk about it, kind of like an early Good Mic Work birthday celebration, because my birthday is on Tuesday, so we probably will be talking a little bit past the midnight hour for those of you on the East Coast, so maybe I'll wear a cute little party hat or something like that tomorrow, but I'll put the link to all that stuff up tonight. But keep that in mind, tomorrow night after Raw, we are back at it again, and we'll be streaming and having a good time. Who did I miss? Mike Witt, 5 from you, my friend. Thank you very much, family member. Clash of the Castle was a better show, but tonight's ending was way better. Plus, the Acclaimed should have won. Yes, we haven't even started talking about these matches yet, but once we get to that Acclaimed match, I will definitely give my opinions on that. We got 5 more from Spectre as well. I don't mind a long AEW show since it's only 4 pure pay-per-views a year. Driving home at midnight is worth it. Also, isn't Morrissey an ex-WWE guy? Yes, he is. I'm surprised that that conversation hasn't already came up. But yeah, another thing you got to remember is AEW doesn't slaughter you and pound you in the face with pay-per-views every 3 weeks. They're a little bit more spread out, and they just plug the holes with themed dynamites, kind of how like WCW and NWA did the Clash. So I kind of can accept longer shows from them because they have fewer pay-per-views. And when the fans who complain that certain wrestlers don't get enough TV time, I mean, at least this is Tony Khan trying to give as many pay-per-view spots to as much talent as possible. WWE used to do that, kind of still does, but they really used to back in the day with WrestleMania. They would try to find a spot for everyone on the card, even if they have to make a battle royal. And they were doing that for a while with the Andre and the Moolah Battle Royal, just to get people out there, give them spots. And Tony Khan trying to do his best on pay-per-views to get as many pay-per-view matches for his talent. I don't really, at the end of the day, see a huge issue with that, That's basically my opinion on it. Victor Colon, happy to see you as well, my friend. Zach, I think I got you already. Al Cobb's in the house. Everybody else that's here, thank you. Got to knock out the rest of these chatty supers. 2 more from Spectre. One last super chat to say happy early birthday. Thank you, my friend. I don't want to think about my birthday. I just like to let them come and go. But you guys are always very nice to me on social media. And on Tuesday, I'm going to be 45, halfway to 90. I started doing this YouTube channel when I was 33. Christ. Anyway, Victor Colon, good to see you, my friend. Glad you're here as well. Thank you for the $5. Look at what happened with Edge and Matt Hardy. They had a beef and they were able to work together, and happy early birthday. Thank you very much, dude. Yes, Matt Hardy and Edge is a really good example. So's Brett and Shawn in a lot of ways, but Matt and Edge had such a personal issue where, people have been murdered for less than what, Adam had done to Matt in that situation. And if that would have been anybody else or somebody a little bit less stable, how many crimes of passion do we see where somebody walks in on his wife cheating on him and he blows the fucking dude away? That's some serious stuff there. And the fact that they were able to come back together and be able to appreciate their past. I'm sure that Edge has apologized for his part in it. They've had multiple appearances together since then, and that's a happy ending. So if Matt and Edge can not only put their differences aside, but work together when all of that heat is going on. And I've always thought that was the most amazing part about it. It's crazy enough that they're friends now, but in the middle of that happening, like when it's fresh, when Lita had literally just cheated on you and is still doing that with him, you're in the middle of this angle. That is crazy, so it can happen. So if Colt and Punk have come back together and there's going to be some sort of an angle here, or if MJF's going to have something to do with that, maybe Colt Cabana joins Stokely Hathaway's crew because he's kind of been shoved off into the background since CM Punk has come into the company. And because of their history, Punk has been able to kind of push down and literally hold back Colt Cabana based on all the internet reports we've been reading. So there's a lot of reality there that can be sewn in, and that always makes the best storyline. So maybe they're setting up for something pretty major here with Punk and MJF, especially if the MJF character, I could completely see approaching Colt Cabana, couldn't you? MJF is somebody that, hits you where it hurts. MJF is not afraid to expose anything about you. Even tonight, he's playing fucking voicemails on the loudspeakers. So I can totally see MJF maybe trying to manipulate or persuade Colt Cabana to join him in his quest to take down CM Punk. And it makes a lot of sense based on how CM Punk is currently talking about Colt Cabana. Apparently right now he is tearing him apart and burying him in the media scrum. He called out the fan for chanting his name last week on Dynamite. There is something to this. There's a bread trail crumb being left for us, or a bread crumb trail, I should say, being left for us. And it's going to lead to somewhere, so hopefully it leads somewhere awesome. Mike Witt, thank you for the $2 from you, dude. Joker should have been Greg Gagne. Oh, man. Joker should have been Douchebag Inferno. No, thank you. Big no. Big no. I'm happy that the Joker turned out to be MJF. We talked about that a lot, though, because, we weren't even sure if MJF needed to really be the Joker here. He could just attack the winner in the main event. You don't need any Casino Battle Royal. But if you want to give him an immediate title shot, that's really the only way to do it based on how he quit and he walked out. If he's going to come back into the company, he's either going to have to negotiate that with Tony Khan, give me a title shot, or get himself in a match that he just earns one. So we saw how all of that played out. But anyway, let's start getting into our AEW 2022 All Out review. I did almost forget, though, before we do that, I want to just say hello to all of the channel members. If you would like to join and become a member of the family, you can do so by clicking the link below or the join button right underneath this video. And we are going to begin some members-only watch-alongs this month. And I'm also going to need all of the members' input in the next couple of days on what to do for our next watch-along. And there will be information on that coming up at the end of the podcast. But I want to thank and welcome a couple of the new members coming in just in the last day, William and Ian Dunn again. I think you're in here a couple of times, Ian Dunn. I'm not sure what's going on there. And also Queasy, who are our latest channel members over the last 24 hours. I want to also welcome Bo Kavlovic, who is also joined just a couple of days ago. We also want to thank Al Ramos Pro, Zach H., Chaz Medeiros, Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Danielle Mark, Jimmy Anderson, C-Mac, Ian Joe Dunn, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, Sam Piboon, How Wheezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Define, Ricks, Deshaun Robinson, Zane G., Chris Barrera, Michael Cuomo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Max Pokebrush Spectra, Zach Palgett, Red Raven Rucker, Reese Jones, Ian Dunn, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and JJ Leg. As always, guys, thank you for joining the channel. We are 25 days in now to the channel memberships, and I'm very happy with those of you who have joined, and it's going to be fun. I'm glad we finally got to do this. So there you go. Now I'm officially done with the bullshit, and we can talk about AEW All Out. Now, of course, they went back to doing the 0 hour pre-show, and they had, I believe, four matches on this thing? 4 matches scheduled. I thought there was only going to be 3. It turned out to be 4, and that's a lot. So if that's going to be something that they're going to do going forward, I'm fine with that because it gives, like I said, more talent a chance, and it doesn't just give your entire 1 hour show nothing but video packages and recaps. Sometimes that stuff can be helpful, but you know, you might as well have have matches on the show. So that's what they're doing here. 4 of them on this 0 hour. That is 75% of the matches WWE had on their entire card yesterday, which is crazy. But anyway, the 0 hour show opened up with Sammy and Ty Mello taking on Ortiz and Ruby Soho. This was great, really interesting and unique way to open up a pay-per-view. RJ City was kind of doing like the red carpet interviews, and he's got Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello there with him, and of course they're being douchey heels, and Sammy, and of course they're the mixed tag champions in AAA, and Sammy is saying that nobody wants to see them do anything except kiss, so they start making out, and then you hear like this horn, and they walk around the corner to find Ruby Soho and Ortiz in, I guess, what's like a golf cart looking thing or security cart, or I don't know, that's not a four-wheeler. I don't know what the hell it was, but there's another vehicle here, and poor Sammy does not do well with these things, and then Ortiz floors it. Sammy gets run over by whatever that thing that was that they were driving, and they all wound up in the ring, and the match starts right away. So we got the tag match underway. I thought it was a perfect way to open this. It was fun. Shout out to Ortiz, who had the Bull Nakano makeup on, which was pretty cool. Anna Jay wound up getting involved in this, and Ruby Soho took a pretty hard shot to the nose. She either sold it really well, or she might have actually got her nose busted there by Ty Mello, who hit the Ty KO for the win and allowed Sammy and his girl to keep their titles, and I thought it was pretty fun, and you don't see many pay-per-views open with an interview and a vehicular assault, so that's new. After that, we get Hook defending the FTW title against Angelo Parker. I love Hook. It's so great. He's so great. So you know this is just going to be another easy victory for Hook. Not too surprising here. He tapped him out rather quickly with the Taz mission. I'm loving 2.0. They have found themselves a gem in Daddy Magic. He is hilarious, and I think those are 2 of the WWE releases where it really, really worked out for the better. Even with Triple H still in charge now, I just don't know if they would be as funny as they are currently in AEW and with the JAS. Now, after Hook wins, he is attacked from behind by Matt Menard, And they start working over Hook, and Action Bronson, who was earlier shown at ringside sitting in the front row there. He's the one who sings and produces, I guess, Hook's theme song, and I think he's done some other stuff for AEW as well. And he's a big boy, so he hops the barricade, or at least walks around it, and hops in the ring, and he literally picks up and throws both members of 2.0 off of Hook, just throws them right out of the ring, and kind of hangs out and saves Hook. So that was a nice moment for him. They did the thing on the last show where they had the rapper there or whatnot. So they do this kind of stuff from time to time, just like WWE does. After that, we have the All Atlantic title on the line, as Pac defends against Kip Sabian. This is Kip Sabian's first match in forever. Dude has not had a match since that Arcade Anarchy match way back in like March or April of 2021 or 2021, and it's his first match in front of fans since right before the pandemic. So that's a long time. He has really upgraded his look. I liked his gear, his robe, kind of Cody Rhodes-ish. He's got the blonde hair now and the makeup, and he's just kind of given himself a little bit of an upgrade. He looks good. We did not pick him to win in the predictions, though. I know he's coming back after a long time off, but, Pac is a pretty credible champion. He's tough as hell. He just won that title. I haven't even seen him defend this thing very much yet, so I'm in no rush for him to drop it to a newly returning Kip Sabian, who probably has to reintroduce him to the fans. A lot has happened in the last year and a half since he's got in the ring, so I think not winning here was fine, and Pac did wind up beating him at the end, and that's great. I think Kip Sabian can go on to do a lot of great things, but maybe here wasn't the time to be belting him up right away. After Pac's victory, he goes to the stage. I believe Tony Schiavone is there, and that's when Orange Cassidy comes out, and it looks like Orange Cassidy is going to be the next challenger for Pac's All-Atlantic title, and that's a match we've seen before. Last time they feuded, it was great. So if they revisit this here, Greg ain't got no issue with that. Oh, my cat's making noise down there, so I certainly don't care, and that looks like it could be a fun feud coming up next. And in the final match of the 0 Hour show was the Chop Fest between Tomohoro Ishii and Eddie Kingston. Now, of course, this match was kind of made last minute, just like the Sammy and Ty Mello tag team match was, because Eddie and Sammy were booked for the main card originally one-on-one, but they had that scuffle backstage. Eddie was suspended, and both guys have now been regulated to the pre-show. Maybe that's part of their punishment. We know Eddie already was punished, but maybe TK just decided to punish Sammy for no reason anyway, just for fun. Why not? So that kind of made my pick of Sammy Guevara being the Joker obsolete, as we would see once he had a match on the pre-show here. But this was a pretty brutal match. They just sat there and pounded the shit out of each other's chests. Ishii had a lot of welts right in the corner of his chest specifically. He was really, really red, like dark beet red. Not tomato red, but beet purple fucking red. And Eddie Kingston was as well. My girlfriend walked in the room when Eddie was wrestling, and she didn't recognize him with his dark hair. She goes, "Who the hell is that?" And I was like, "It's Eddie Kingston." So he looked a little different, and these two guys just smashed the hell out of each other. And in the end, Eddie was a little bit too much for the Bulldog, hit him with the Northern Lights bomb for the win, and got, I guess, like a Forbidden Door victory over Ishii. So that was good stuff. I wouldn't put it in the category of Sheamus and Gunther yesterday, but still a hard-hitting, beefy slap match, and those type of matches are always fun. So pretty good. Little four-match pre-show there, and now it is time for the main card. I had read on Twitter somewhere, I don't even know who said it, but I was under the impression that Jericho and Danielson were going to open the show here. So the Casino Ladder match opening kind of surprised me, and I was like, sweet, that means we're going to find out right now. That means if the Joker is anybody big, and it's somebody outside of the company or a big return like an MJF, at least we get to see this now. At least we get to find out now. And I was still not convinced that it would be MJF. I thought there were other ways to get him into the title picture without having to do this. And that's why I'm really glad they presented, or they booked it the way that they did without him coming right out, because I think that helped things later on for the main event. But the first two combatants to start the match were Wheeler Yuta and Phoenix, so that's a fun start. They go at it for a little while. They're then joined by Rush and Andrade. After Rush and Andrade come out, we are followed by Claudio and then Penta. So we've got everybody in the ring. Everybody's kicking everybody's ass. They're up the aisleway. The ladders are everywhere. We get a crazy destroyer on Dante Martin from Penta as he was making his entrance on the ramp, which was pretty nuts. We get this great double spot with the Lucha Brothers, which I believe is probably setting up, the feud and the inevitable match with the Lucha Brothers and Rush and Andrade, because I think it's Penta has got the ladder bridged on the apron and the barricade. There's a table over in the far corner. So Penta hits Andrade with a destroyer on the bridged ladder while Phoenix simultaneously jumps off the top rope on the other side and frog splashes Eddie Guerrero style Rush into the table. That was my favorite spot of the night. Dante Martin, after we thought he was dead, taking the destroyer on the ramp, he comes back, leaps from the top rope twice in this match. He did this, leaps from the top rope all the way up to the ladder, and this time he basically clings onto the back of Claudio to try to stop him from grabbing the belt. And while everybody is scuffling on the ladder, that's when the ring is swarmed by all of these masked men. And it immediately made me think of Retribution back in the Thunderdome with the fucker with the chainsaw and all that. And all these masked men start, hitting the ring and basically surrounding the ring and not allowing any of the combatants to get anywhere near the ladder. And there's another guy under a hood, and he climbs all the way up, and he unhooks the poker chip. And when he takes his mask off, he reveals that it's Stokely Hathaway. So here we thought it was going to be MJF, and it turns out to be him. You're like, well, that's weird. And as the other masked men start taking their hoods off, you see that it's W. Morrissey and it's everybody else that Stokely has been handing out those business cards to. So you think he's going to go down there, and now he has a choice, basically, who he can hand this thing to and give the title match to. And that's when the Rolling Stones' Symphony for the Devil song begins to play. Tony Khan paying for some royalties here, paying for some music rights, which you love to see it. I had no idea the symbolism of this or what this meant, and out walks this masked figure, kind of like in a white-looking devil mask, and he's got a hood. He's dressed all in black, completely covered from head to toe. He does appear to be the same size as MJF, and people start pointing out that back during the final match between MJF and CM Punk, MJF cut that promo, the usual suspects line of the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist, or whatever it was. And a lot of people were already putting that together. It was very appropriate with the song and the way MJF was dressed and some of the things that they've said and the teases that they've already done for this. It was pretty much written right there for you in black and white. But I still, wasn't totally convinced until we saw him. So out comes this masked man. Stokely hands him the poker chip. He's now it. He goes to reveal the mask, and then he just goes like this, and he goes, nope, and he leaves. So that was pretty creative, I thought, having the Joker win the ladder match, but at the end of the match, you still don't know who the Joker is. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's not something I would have ever fucking thought of. I'm like, how do you pull that off? And yeah, you put him in a mask and you wait to do the reveal later. So I immediately put up a Twitter poll. I said, when do we find out the identity of the masked man? Is this something we find out at the end of the show, or do we wait until Wednesday and do a big greater power reveal or whatever? And most people thought we would find out who was under the mask. We would find that out at the end of this show. But many people were going further than that. Many were calling for an MJF title victory tonight. And again, I was a little bit against that. I'm like, do we really want to go that far with it? Because it's not a Money in the Bank. It's not a cash-in. So you can't just come and say, I want my match now. It's going to have to take something to get that match done. Something hopefully a little bit more creative than Mr. Fuji going, oh, Hulk Hogan, we challenge you right now. Like hopefully something a little bit more creative than that, than MJF just verbally baiting Punk into a match. And Punk would have had to have the fight of his life against Moxley to even get to that point. And MJF then beating Punk, I almost think would hurt Moxley in a lot of ways, because it almost makes Moxley an afterthought. This guy deserves a ton of credit for his title run. So I was trying to think that far ahead to the main event. I said, okay, if Moxley loses the title and then Punk wins, oh my God, that's a big deal. But then MJF shows up, cashes in his casino chip. Now you got Punk winning and then MJF beating him, and just the buzz of MJF being back. Like, Moxley's going to be an afterthought. I wouldn't do Moxley like that. So I was actually okay with no match taking place between the two. But I was hoping that we would at least get a reveal of who was under the mask. And that's what we wound up getting. So I'm glad that we didn't do the championship match here. There's plenty of time to do that championship match. Of course, we have Grand Slam coming up at Arthur Ashe, which is kind of close to the home of MJF. He's a Jersey dude, right? And they're pretty close to that, right? So that could be a good place for it, unless they do want to push this to the next pay-per-view. Generally, these poker chips, I thought, were cashed in a little bit earlier than that, but maybe they could push it that far. Maybe they could do it right there on TV. I don't know, but this is, I'm not sure if you want to give CM Punk just another little simple 3-week run. Another thing that would have happened tonight, if the scenario of MJF winning the title over Punk, happened at the end, that would make Punk a 2-time AEW champion with 0, count 'em, successful AEW title defenses. Can we do that? So I am glad that Punk did not lose the title right off the bat. I think he should have a couple of successful title defenses before he drops it. If he faces MJF right away and loses it, that's going to be weird. So we'll see how all that goes. But I thought it was well pulled off. Had MJF revealed himself at the end of the ladder match, or he would have not had Stokely's help and he just came out and won it, like I said earlier, I think that would really make the main event extremely predictable in terms of who was going to win, because then you would know they're probably going to go with Punk, and it's going to be MJF and Punk. So, yeah, I liked it. I liked the ladder match. I liked the way it was set up. I thought it was different to be able to have a guy win and you don't know his identity. I thought it was all right. Match number 2 on the card was the finals of the AEW Trios titles, and of course that was the Elite, the Bucks and Kenny taking on the Dark Order and Hangman Page. A lot of story going on here, a lot of history between not only the Bucks and Kenny and Hangman Page, but also Hangman and Dark Order. Dark Order had originally asked Page to be their partner. He declined, respectfully he declined. They accepted that. Preston Vance wound up getting hurt. Page decided to fill in and take their place. All the while, the Bucks on the other side of the bracket are tearing through everybody. They win and wind up beating Ospreay and Aussie Open on Wednesday, and then Dark Order and Page win on Friday, and there you go. Your main event is set, your finals of the tournament is set, and that's kind of the way we figured this would go the minute Adam Page stepped in and became a member of that team. Now, I don't even remember who I picked. I want to say I might have picked Dark Order and Page in this because I thought it would be nice for them to have a moment, but it could also be the time to set up a betrayal or a turn of some kind, and they planted a little bit of a seed here in this match. It was really fun. I thought it was the perfect way to end this tournament. This match was great. All 6 guys did a great job. It gave us the matchups we wanted. It gave us a nearly full-strength Kenny Omega who looked to be in better form, a lot less of the bandaging and the athletic tape and all that. He's back to his old gear. He doesn't have the shirt on anymore, and he's starting to look closer and closer to Kenny. We knew we would get those moments between Kenny and Hangman. They even kind of recreated the deal they did in the Hangman and Omega match. I think that Hangman won the title in before the buckshot, where he's talking to Matt Jackson on the outside or whatever, and they allow him to finish off Kenny. So they kind of replayed that there as well. A lot of good near falls in this. Crowd loved it. They were along for the ride. I was along for the ride. I enjoyed the work of John Silver. He's fucking hilarious to me. He's one of my favorite guys. He's extremely entertaining, and he even did a good job countering at one point the one-winged angel for an extremely close near fall on Kenny Omega, and I actually thought the Dark Order had it there. I did. I would have been happy. I would have been thrilled. In the end, though, love the story they told here. Hangman Page, I forget who is set up for the buckshot lariat. I believe it's Kenny. It is Kenny, actually. But behind Kenny is John Silver. And, of course, John Silver is so damn little and tiny, he was probably invisible to Hangman Page. So Hangman goes for the buckshot. Kenny moves out of the way. Hangman buckshots poor little John Silver, and Kenny pins him for the win. And the Bucks and Kenny Omega are your first ever inaugural AEW Trios Tag Team Champions. And you could see the remorse and the regret on the face of Hangman Page. Hangman Page is such a likable character. It really does give him a lot of sympathy when you have to think about somebody like him feeling bad, or, you know, having regret, or feeling terrible, or like living with guilt, because he's supposed to be somebody that's, you know, supposed to lead the team, and he's going to be their savior, and he wanted to do this for them by joining them and give them their first championship. And it all backfires, and not only is he not able to deliver that for his friends, but it's his doing, it's his fault that they lost with his screw up. So that puts Hangman Page, in a situation where he's going to feel bad and guilty, and he's not going to forgive himself. And the Dark Order is going to have to be like, "Don't worry about it, bro. It's okay." And they should pick him up. I mean, hell, Drew McIntyre lost yesterday in probably the most heartbreaking loss of his entire career, and he still had time to sing karaoke after. So I think Dark Order, after a couple of beers, can probably make Hangman feel a little bit better. But given who Hangman Page is and how likable of a character he is and a person, you don't like to see him feeling bad about himself or guilty or anything like that. So Hangman, it's all good, bro. Shit happens. Don't worry about it. I'm sure you guys could potentially get another shot at those trios titles down the road. So don't sweat it. But that could also be the beginning or the seed planting of some bigger issue between Page and the Dark Order, and maybe the beginning of the betrayal that sends Hangman Page back to the Elite. I don't know what the storyline direction with Hangman Page is. I don't know if he'll eventually get back into the CM Punk deal, because he doesn't seem to have anything to do with that right now, with Punk, moving on to MJF, and whatever the hell happened to the media scrum where Punk apparently was burying Colt Cabana. We'll have to look into that later. So we'll see where they go with Page and the Dark Order, but I kind of like the way the finish was set up and presented, because now it makes Hangman Page feel like shit. I did not pay much attention, to be perfectly honest, to the Jade Cargill and Athena, a TBS championship match. I did, however, pay attention to Jade Cargill's entrance, which was fantastic. I don't know what her gear was supposed to be inspired by. She looked like she was half alien or something like that, but really awesome looking gear. I really like how she changes up her stuff for every show, and every time she does, she looks incredible. And I loved how she kind of busted through the bricks. And it gave me just a brief glimpse of what Jade Cargill in ECW would look like, the way she came busting through there. Remember, ECW used to have that brick wall with the hole in it, and it just kind of gave those ECW vibes, and it looked cool just for a second. Athena did give her a good match. I mean, it was competitive, and as I said in the predictions the other day on Thursday, I said Jade Cargill's 37-0 or whatever the hell it is, and she's undefeated, and the longer she's gone undefeated, the more you have to set up this loss on some sort of a big stage. This was right smack dab in the middle of this card, following a great trios match which crowned brand new champions. A lot of stuff still happening later on in the card, and a lot of more surprises to come, and potentially more title changes. I just did not feel like here would be the moment for Athena, and it wasn't. Jade wound up winning, hit her with the Jaded for the win. Athena did put up a fight, had Jade on the ropes a couple of times, but Jade was just too much Jade, and she continues to roll. And start placing your bets. Who is going to be the person to take that TBS title off of her? I think Chris Statlander was on most of our radars, but Chris Statlander got injured. Athena kind of stepped in to be that challenger, but she wasn't the person. Had Statlander not gotten hurt, I think Statlander might have taken the title from Jade Cargill, but she's not. So now you got to find somebody else, because you can't wait a year for Statlander to come back and Jade goes undefeated for another year. I think Jade Cargill is going to have to lose before 2022 is over. That's my early prediction. So when that happens and how they do it, and if they're going to wait for somebody to come in to do it, or if they're just going to let it be Britt Baker and move her out of the title scene for a little while, that could be possible. But I'm curious to read what you guys think could happen with the TBS title in the future. Maddie, you thought the trios match was the best. I'm cool with that. The match was fun. Let me get all the way down to the bottom here, because I'm way up top. I do have a couple of super chats to answer, but I'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I want to welcome Andrew Hollywood, Doug Unfunny, Timothy Hawkins, anybody else that's jumping into the chat. Steve Milan is here as well. Let me read this because this has to do with CM Punk. During the AEW media scrum, Tony Khan looked mightily embarrassed while CM Punk was dropping endless F-bombs while being obviously high on something. Maybe he was eating marijuana brownies. What is going on? Can we just kind of look into this together? I know we're right smack dab in the middle of the review. The next match we have to talk about is Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns taking on Wardlow and FTR. But I want to find out what the hell is going on with CM Punk here. Okay, here we go. Punk went off on Colt Cabana and Hangman. Let's see what this is. 2 minutes long. We're going to listen to this together, okay?
And I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking my time, and this is a fucking business. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business.
You guys hear this?
My friends, if I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton, I felt never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top. Okay? You call it jealousy, you call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt. I have every invoice. I have every email. I have the email where he says, and I quote, "I agree to go our separate ways. I will get my own lawyer and you do not have to pay anymore." That's an email that I have. The only reason the public did not see is because when I finally had to countersue him through discovery, I have every receipt. I have every invoice.
Okay, audio's not that weird. I'm gonna unpause it.
We discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact.
Shared a bank account with his mother.
And as soon as we discovered that fact and we subpoenaed old Marcia, he sent the email, "Oh, can we please drop all this?" Now, it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with him. Want nothing to do with him.
His voice does sound weird.
Do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps. And the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if y'all are at fault, fuck you. If you're not, I apologize. But what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and fucking go into business for himself? For what? What did I do? Dave, what did I ever do?
He's talking to Dave Meltzer. I'll explain. If you were just tuning in, I'll explain all this in 1 second. This is CM Punk talking. Okay, it's over. Okay, holy shit. So during the media scrum, people were saying in the chat that CM Punk was going off on Tony Khan and Hangman Page and Colt Cabana. And so I'm like, well, what the hell is this about? Somebody did send me the tweet. I think it was Michael Witt. This came from Trey Lance here. There's a bunch of clips floating around, but that was CM Punk going crazy on all of the reports of Colt Cabana, and he just completely raked him across the coals, called him by his real name, talked about how he paid his bills, how he shared a bank account with his mom, and basically just trolled him for not being nearly as successful as him, and scolded everybody, and scolded irresponsible EVPs who couldn't manage a Wendy's, according to CM Punk. It's an old Jim Cornette line. Who's he talking about? Who is he talking about? And it's all you can see is CM Punk here on this video, so I don't know if anybody's sitting next to him. And like I said, we went live right after the show here, so I have not watched this media scrum at all, but that is extremely interesting. It feels like that was pretty genuine comments coming from CM Punk. He seems pretty agitated about these things. Probably what he's been reading over the past couple of weeks. Maybe it bubbled over. You got a lot of adrenaline in you after a match like that, after a brutal match, after you've been bleeding. You know, even His voice sounded weird. I don't think he's high on anything. He's very articulate, and he doesn't seem to be cross-eyed or anything like that. But I don't think he would just end his straight edgeness just for tonight. But he is just seemed very angry. So CM Punk continues to make a lot of waves. I'll be dying to hear about what this was all about. So once Fightful or any of the other boys gets on that story and we figure out what the hell Punk's problem is, and again, if could be something that he could be using as a way to become the biggest asshole that you possibly can. But in a lot of ways, there's probably many people that could see CM Punk's side of what he was saying as well. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess what triggered this, I'm going to read this thread real quick, and then we're going to get back. Our next match we have to talk about is Jay Lethal and Motor City Machine Guns against Wardlow and FTR. I hope you guys are okay. A little unorthodox way of doing this review, but there is news coming out of this media scrum. So let me read this thread from Trevor Dame at Trevor Dame on Twitter. Presser is here, and it started abruptly, and Punk is pissed off about someone asks about Colt. Punk, are you friends with Scott Colton? Reporter says no. That makes two of us. That's what Punk said. Punk says he hasn't been friends with Scott Colton for 10 years. He is infuriated. He says he brought a guy with him that didn't want to see him at the top. He says he paid every bill for him, and he has all the receipts. So this is all the stuff we heard. We just listened to this, so I'm not going to read all of this. Punk keeps going after the EVPs, talking about how they tried to fuck over him by planting stories with their internet friends, trying to get people to hate him. So maybe, what does that mean? The Bucks and maybe Kenny or just isn't really liking Punk's behavior, so they're, text messaging or DMing some of the dudes to put out story. I don't know what the hell. This seems to be what Punk thinks. Punk just apologized to one question asker. If he's scary right now, I like you. Punk also expressed anger at people in AEW who do not want to look for advice from vets. Punk said there is so much drama backstage. He praises Adam Cole, calls him a sweetheart. If that ain't a truer statement, then I ain't bald. Because Adam Cole and Sami Zayn, I don't think you find better people in the world. I really don't, in terms of in the wrestling universe anyway. I am a big Adam Cole as a person fan, totally. Punk asked Brian Alvarez if he's mad at him. Punk says, I'm a little mad at you. Can I just say I'd like to thank the entire wrestling media for taking the Punk heat off me. Punk calls out Alvarez again, says he saw a video where Brian talked about that Hangman promo, and Brian was so incredulous that Punk went into business for himself. So it sounds like Punk went off a lot. So I will listen to more of this. We will maybe detail this a little bit more if we hear some of the reasons why, what the ripple effect or the backlash from this was. A lot of people are going to say and have things to say, I would assume. My advice to you guys, tomorrow when you wake up, or maybe even later on tonight, go over to the Young Bucks Twitter page and see what their bio reads, because I guarantee you it's going to change. Wow. Yeah, we'll probably be addressing this and talking about a lot more tomorrow night after the Raw review. But if anybody has any other juicy morsels that they've come across and you're on Twitter, tag me in that clip and we'll give it a look here on the channel. Let me take a sip of water after that. Holy shit. Anyway, all right, back to the pay-per-view review. We'll revisit CM Punk later on. We still have to talk about the main event. It is now six-man tag match time again. Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns taking on Wardlow and FTR. I loved this match. First of all, it's really cool to see Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley wrestling in an AEW ring. Welcome to AEW. Hopefully they'll be used sporadically in and out. Not sure what kind of deal they're under or how the arrangement works, but it's cool to see them there nonetheless. Lethal and Machine Guns and Satnam Singh and everybody come out along with Sonjay. Of course, they've taken that fight like an 8-year-old girl shirt and crossed out girl and put brat. And then it's time for FTR and Wardlow to make their entrance. Wardlow comes out first first to the stage and stands in the middle. And then FTR comes out, and as they make their way, behind them is Dax Harwood's little daughter, who was the subject of that promo, the reason that shirt was made. And she was there, and she looked fucking adorable, and he told her to go up and give Wardlow a hug, and she did, and they sent her to the back. So then we have the match. The match is fun. The match is really good. Wardlow, for the finish, winds up just powerbombing Jay Lethal into oblivion for the win, and Wardlow and FTR get the big win. They are attacked after the match by the heels, and that's when Samoa Joe makes his return. His music hits. He comes out. He's got the Ring of Honor title with him, and he comes in and helps the babyfaces even the score with the heels. They get Sonjay Dutt in there cornered, and that's when Dax's daughter comes back out, and she grabs the pencil out of his ear, and she's only 8. She breaks it right in half. Loved it. And then Dax nails Sonjay right in the face. He goes down, and she pins him with a boot on his chest. I loved it. I really hope there's no negative Nancy's or sourpuss assholes giving shit to this segment. It was a feel-good segment. You've got a 45-match, 11-hour card here. If you have a problem with them allotting 2 or 3 minutes for this feel-good moment for Dax Harwood and his daughter, then you're going to have trouble keeping a woman happy, I hate to tell you. So I hope nobody has any sort of an issue with that. I thought it was cute. I thought it was a feel-good thing for Dax and his daughter, something that they can cherish forever and look back on when that girl's 33, or, I don't know why I picked that random age, 25, 23, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. This is going to be a pretty cool memory for them to have together. So I have no issue whatsoever with them doing that. And we're going to pause here before we get into Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks, because I've got another clip here with CM Punk and Tony Khan sitting right behind him. This one is from Wrestle Purists. Thank you, Ryan, for the tag in that. This one is just 50 seconds long.
And the reason I've never defended
I do have to say, the audio is either slowed down or Punk just has a lot of post-match blood and mucus in his throat because it's really deep. He's just talking very strangely. But let's see who he's talking about here. This tweet is captioned with the quote, "Name 2 people who have made the most money off the name CM Punk." We'll see what they say.
Defended myself is because when you do, it just sounds like you're being defensive. But I've eaten shit on this subject for a very, very
he's
long
eating
time.
something. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
And I'm very sad today that I had to get up here and say his name. He doesn't fucking deserve it.
Wow.
And talk about it. But facts are facts, Name 2 people that have made the most money off the name CM Punk. I don't think you're there yet. The first one's Vince McMahon. The second one's Scott Colton.
God. So name 2 people who made the most money off CM Punk. The first one's Vince McMahon. The second one's Scott Colton. And he goes, Tony, I don't think you're there yet. Tony is fine with this. What's going on with Colt Cabana's contract? I thought he was signed on to the Ring of Honor crew, which that is his boss. And this is all public. And can you be just completely disparaging another fellow employee and somebody who works for the company right in front of your boss and right in front of the world? Is that what we do? Apparently, Colt Cabana did some bad shit to CM Punk. I don't know. But Punk does not have good things to say about him at all. So all that wonder if these 2 guys have buried the hatchet, I guess not. Unless they have, and this is part of a bigger angle. But Punk seems pretty pissed about this. He doesn't seem to be acting, to me anyway, but that's interesting stuff, wild stuff. Anyway, he's 100% going heel. Yeah, James, you'd think so now. What do you guys make of all this? Are you guys reading this shit and listening to this? He called out Colt Cabana, he called out Hangman Page, the EVPs, and even Brian Alvarez says, I have a spider. He doesn't look poisonous. Live free, buddy. Yeah, I'm glad he didn't call us out, too. Good mic work. I've watched this motherfucker every damn week. He talks about AEW, and he talks about my UFC, Actually, I don't say anything bad about CM Punk, but he could just be the guy to find something bad. So I'm glad we were spared CM Punk's wrath. We will see how this goes and what it means for the future. But, yeah, yikes. Yikes and yikes. Well, since we paused, let me knock out a couple of more of these super chats. Thomas Aridia, thank you very much, dude, for that $5 earlier. What a weekend of wrestling between Clash, Worlds Collide, and All Out. I'm not complaining at all. We fans should be grateful. More people should be like you and me, Thomas. I agree completely. Completely. Hollywood Guy, thank you very much for that $5. Hello, Greg. What is your opinion on Aleister Black, on him leaving and blowing a kiss to the audience? Is he done or nothing to worry about? I did not see him blow the kiss. Did he blow a kiss? No shit. I will be talking about that match in a minute, and he did take the pin here, and he also lost and took the pin in the Trios tournament match as well. You combine that with the rumors of him getting released. He got misted in the face and pinned tonight. Maybe he's taking time off to get his mental health together. I don't know, but we're going to be talking about that here in just a minute. I will get to that, Hollywood, and I'll elaborate more on it. All right, that's good for the super duper chats at the moment. Let's move on. If you guys don't mind smashing that thumbs up button for me, pretty low amount for an AEW review, although I do know that everybody and their mother is up on YouTube right now. So you can't all watch me. I get it, but thanks for being here, those of you who are. The next match up was kind of a surprising one. Not really, but also kind of. And I don't remember any of my predictions, which is kind of funny. There's too many matches for me to remember. So I went back and forth on this match, Powerhouse Hobbs versus Ricky Starks. I thought Hobbs should win, but I also thought Starks could pull off a victory, and then you do a blow off. I'm pretty sure I picked Hobbs in this match, but I don't quite remember. It was a bit surprising. It was quite the dominant victory for Hobbs. Too big, too strong. Starks, I think, will have his day. When I look at how this match was booked, I think the right call was made here. I think Starks, this is a loss that Starks could come back from because he's fighting a guy that's 3 times his size, that's super fucking strong, and he's a smaller guy, and this is a, one-on-one fight. It's going to be tough to take this guy down, and that's going to be something that Starks will have to get better at. So if Hobbs were to lose here to Starks, the fact that they're trying to push this guy as a monster, I don't know. I think that might hurt him a little bit. So I had no problem with Hobbs winning, but he won pretty dominantly, which I also kind of liked. Hit Starks with that awesome spine buster of his and a pretty emphatic victory for Powerhouse Hobbs and a statement win. And Starks is going to have to now dust himself off and move on. I saw a lot of people saying tonight that he was buried. Why? Why was he buried? He went out there and fought a tank and lost. You'd lose too if you had to fight a tank. You wouldn't be buried. You just lose because he's bigger and stronger and bigger and also bigger. It's a little bit stronger too. It's hard to beat a guy like that. So I don't think that's the end of the world at all. If anything, I thought it helped put over Powerhouse Hobbs as a no-nonsense big guy, and that Starks didn't give him a 25-minute match where Hobbs just barely beat him. This was a statement win, over a guy that many fans feel have a bright future. This will not harm the future of Ricky Starks. Yes, he got beat, but some of the biggest stars in the business got beat and beat hard in their early parts of their careers. Starks has got a lot going for him. He's got an ass ton of charisma. He's got a great look. He's got an incredible theme song. I think there's a lot of good, strong, solid, recognizable theme songs in AEW right now, and that's very important in wrestling. And there's a lot going on for Starks, and I don't think this is the end of the world for him at all. And with Grand Slam coming up in just a couple of weeks at Arthur Ashe, I do feel like they have set themselves up for a shit ton of rematches here on TV, or maybe, booking a lot for that show itself. So I don't think Hobbs and Starks are going to be totally done. We might have some sort of different stipulation match or something like that where Starks could maybe squeak out some sort of win where he beats Hobbs, but Hobbs stays protected. Or Starks can just move on and do other shit now, work with other opponents that he can actually beat. So we'll see. It's a pretty personal issue with these two guys. They've known each other for a while. They've been partners. They had the nasty breakup. QT Marshall's been involved. So it might not just end here. They're probably going to be doing more, and we'll see how it goes then and then judge it. But if anybody's saying Starks was buried, get over yourself. After that was the very extremely controversial AEW Tag Team title match, Swerve and Our Glory, defending the tag team titles against the Acclaimed. This match way exceeded my expectations. I thought it would be a good match, but it was a big card, and it's a angle and a rivalry that's been pretty fun to watch play out on TV. The Acclaimed have gotten themselves organically over with the Billy Gunn stuff and the Scissor Me Daddy stuff. The crowd really plays into it, and they have been building momentum like you do in wrestling. When the audience starts recognizing you, starts enjoying seeing you, reacting louder and louder every week to what you're doing, and many fans wanted them to win tonight. And this match ended in a ton of controversy, but maybe for different reasons than what people think. So some of the early things that happened was that Anthony Bowens got injured in the match in kayfabe. He injured his knee. That was really going to hobble him, especially with the story of them kind of having Bowens already worried about letting the team down and things like that. So he's hurt, and he's already there at a disadvantage. They even kind of tease more of that, I don't want to say dissension, but the fact that Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland aren't exactly best friends. They call themselves Kobe and Shaq. They have a similar relationship, and Keith Lee accidentally did nail Swerve Strickland in this match. So, that could eventually play into what will probably be their feud against each other once this team runs its course and they drop the titles. So, a lot of great stuff here, really impressive spots. Like I said, the match was exceeding expectations for a match card this big. I thought these two teams were going to get 8 minutes. I really did. I thought that it was going to be a quick match. They were just going to get it over with. Swerve in Our Glory was going to retain, and that was going to be that. But it turned out to be a hell of a match that the crowd was engaged in. They were on their feet for most of this thing. They were reacting to everything. And the more the match went on, the more most of the fans were cheering for the Acclaim. We saw some great spots throughout this match. Big double superplex spot onto Keith Lee from the Acclaimed. And once they executed that, I think Swerve came right in with his stomp onto Bowens for a really, really close near fall. And that was pretty good. The crowd was still into it by that point. Max Caster then with a very impressive, basically attitude adjustment or AA onto Keith Lee, lifts this dude up who's just a head and arms attached to a keg and 2 pony kegs, and lifts him up and actually hits him with the FU, which was pretty damn impressive. And then we get the controversial spot. Now, this is where I think the fans turned. We already got a mic drop on the outside of the ring when Max Caster and when the Acclaimed landed one on Swerve Strickland. But then we get Strickland in the ring, and Caster goes up for the mic drop from the top. He hits it perfectly. After all of the near falls we had, and with Keith Lee kind of being out of position, you felt like this was it. The referee goes for 1, goes for 2. Keith Lee makes the save, but I argue that Keith Lee was about a second late. And he came in late on that save, and the referee kind of had to stop. He didn't stop the 3 count, but it was so close. And it almost made it look like he kicked out, they fucked it up or botched it or whatever. I just think had Keith Lee gotten there a little bit earlier and the referee hadn't gotten down to 2.99999 of a 3 count, and he got there after 2 or a little bit earlier, I don't think the fans would have flipped out the way they did. I think what happened was the fans don't like being faked out. You ever meet somebody that doesn't like to be, nobody really does, but if you hide behind a doorway and somebody comes through and you go, boo, and you scare them and they don't think it's funny, they get really, really pissed. I think that's what happened to the fans here. I think they were faked out. We all, myself included, you guys probably did too, when that hand came down for 1, 2, 3, I think everybody in the arena and everybody watching at home thought we had new tag team champions. When we didn't, it immediately turned the fans to where now, sure, many people were probably rooting for the Acclaimed, but now the fans feel jaded. Now the fans feel ripped off or gypped or whatever. They were, a great moment was taken away from them. Immediately on Twitter, everybody's saying the same thing. They should have called an audible. They should have called an audible. I'm not a fan of audibles. I'm not a fan of audibles unless there's an injury or an extenuating circumstance. I am not fans of calling audibles because you decide you want to change the finish in the middle of the match. Because as soon as you do that, people are going to start looking for excuses to do that all the time. And I just would not insert that into pro wrestling. Sure, you got to call an audible, change a finish on the fly sometimes, but generally that's just due to other circumstances, perhaps injuries or whatever, and you have to do things differently. A lot of people say WrestleMania 18, Hogan and Rock, an audible should have been called, and I disagree with that as well. I'm like, no, don't beat Rock. I know the fans for that night wanted to see it, but that would have sucked after Hogan left and did all those things to you, and then you bring him in, he beats your top star. No, fuck you, no. I don't care what those people in Toronto want. That's not what you do. So it really upset the fans, I think, that they felt we had new champions. They were all ready to celebrate, and when they were blue-balled, that pissed them off. And then they got mad and they started shitting on everything. They found a way, I think, for the most part, to enjoy the rest of the match. But as soon as Swerve and Our Glory hit their finish on Bowens for the win, the crowd was not happy. And then, of course, they had the planned bit after the match where they kind of do the show of respect and they do the big scissor me thing, which is normally something that the crowd loves and eats up and pops massively for. I have never in my life seen a wrestling crowd fucking reject and give the stiff arm to something like that in my life. Not even John Cena. I mean, everybody hated John Cena. I mean, this was Royal Rumble 2015, Roman Reigns winning level anger from the fans. They were just not having it. I don't care what you do. I don't care if The Rock comes out. We are not having this. I don't care if you do the little scissor me thing that we all like. You robbed us of a great moment. You took that away from us getting to enjoy watching the Acclaimed win the titles in an epic match. But that's the way it goes sometimes. I don't think anybody was expecting the match to be this good. You think I was the only person on Twitter saying that match exceeded my expectations? I'm sure a lot of people were saying the same thing. So you didn't foresee that happening. You probably just saw a really good match between these two teams where, yeah, some fans would be disappointed the Acclaim didn't win, but nobody would really freak out over it, provided you just have a normal standard match. Swerve wins, you do the scissor me thing at the end, and the fans are fine. But man, when you had a match that good, that built that much drama, that had that much action going on, and you set everybody up, you take us on this ride like you're going to see a title change, and you don't do it. That's some Vern Gagne and Hulk Hogan shit from 1983 that basically made him go to WWF in 1984. So that was quite the letdown for the fans, and I think that is what really turned them, was that near fall that was just a little bit too close. And like I said, had Lee got there on time, I don't think it would have been that big of a deal, but he was a little late. Fans got juked out, and fans don't like getting faked out. They don't like it. So they turned, and that was pretty funny. That's going to happen. It's a learning experience for Tony Khan and AEW, because shit like this will happen to you sometimes. Just look at WWE. How many times have the fans just completely rejected and vocally shit on whatever they're doing in WWE? This is something they deal with all the time. Things are just starting to look up for them, but this has been a regular occurrence in their company for decades, and especially over the last 10 years recently. So hopefully they can do a couple things here. Number one, learn from this situation, and number two, they can also run this back. Now, I argue that a lot of people are like, okay, run it back at Grand Slam. You can redo this match again in Arthur Ashe. That building would explode for the Acclaimed winning the titles, and that is true. But I also think the building would have exploded here because of how good the match was. And that's why it would have been great if it was just done here, because I think that would have created a really good moment. The fans would be going nuts. They'd be appreciative of the match. Sure, you could run it back at Arthur Ashe and everything could go gloriously, and Acclaimed can get their moment. But now that moment is a predictable moment. Now that moment is clearly AEW fixing what went wrong at All Out. And when you see it coming 3 weeks away, it takes away the specialness of it. Not that the fans still aren't going to be happy, and Acclaim can still have their little celebration and whatnot. But let's say the match isn't as good. It's going to be really hard to follow that. It's going to be really hard to top what they did at All Out. So what if when they're in Arthur Ashe, the match is good, but not nearly as good as the other one? And then when the Acclaimed win, yeah, it gets a pop. Yeah, the fans are happy, but it isn't like it would have been if it was All Out. So you do run the risk of that happening, but you also run the possibility of everything going perfectly. So if you do the the rematch at Arthur Ashe. You can also build other issues between Keith Lee and Strickland between now and then maybe at Arthur Ashe you do everything. Not only do you put the belts on the Acclaimed, but you end Lee and Strickland's alliance and just have them implode right there and begin a singles feud. Acclaim's your new tag team champions, and now they got a fresh new set of shit to do with some new teams. So that could put them up against, anybody. I think maybe Lucha Brothers and Andrade and Rush might be getting into something, and if Swerve and Lee wind up having a singles feud, I don't know who would be directly in the Acclaimed's face for title matches. Perhaps best friends, I don't know, but they're kind of involved in the trios division. So now I don't know if there's going to be trios and tag team division people crossing over. Not sure how this is going to work. Hell, maybe the Dark Order can challenge them, and Hangman Page can help them win and take out Billy Gunn. Hangman will be backing up the Dark Order, Silver and Reynolds or whatnot, and then Billy Gunn will be with the Acclaimed. This is looking way ahead, of course, and maybe Hangman helps his Dark Order friends finally achieve championship gold to redeem the screw-up that he had in the Trios final earlier on. But that's looking like into next year, so I don't know why we're talking about that. Next up, another match I got some opinions on. This is the four-way match for the interim AEW title. Of course, Thunder Rosa had to relinquish the title a couple of Dynamites ago, and now they're going to do the interim deal to have a champion in place until Thunder Rosa comes back, and when she does, she will face the interim champion, much like CM Punk and Jon Moxley did. So this is, of course, is between Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Hikaru Shida, and Toni Storm, and we heard the reports of Toni Storm kind of being penciled in to win the AEW title when the match was originally Storm versus Thunder Rosa. So as we talked about in the predictions, if that's what they were going to go with, that's kind of what they should just do here. They should still go with that, because when Thunder Rosa comes back, she automatically faces that champion, and then you can just do the match you plan to right away. So it felt like Toni Storm was the most convenient and also the most predictable. So in my mind, they should just go with her. Shida, everybody loves, but she has been AEW Women's Champion before, and of course, so has Britt Baker. So in my mind, it was Jamie Hayter or Toni Storm, and I think Toni is kind of right now in a better position to win the title, especially, like we said, we heard that she was already set to. My only issue is something that I've been noticing in wrestling lately when it comes to body language. I noticed it yesterday at Clash at the Castle. In my predictions for that, I predicted that McIntyre would win. I acknowledge that there's plenty that could happen. Karrion Kross, Tyson Fury, Austin Theory, Bray Wyatt returning. There's plenty that could derail Drew winning the title. But the way they were setting it up and telling the story, I thought he was going to have his big WrestleMania 36 moment in Cardiff. So when he came out to his entrance, he just the way he looked like a man that was about to lose. He had the sword, but he didn't have the kilt. He had no extra gear on. I was expecting some sort of maybe special or unique entrance for him, bagpipes or something, or some extra flames or an extra sword effect or something, where he'd come out and, and a lot of times that can reveal a lot too. If you come out with some big, crazy, brand new gear that you've never seen before, a lot of times that can be a sign that you're winning. But the way he came out, he just didn't look like a guy that was as fired up as he normally is. And he knows that he's got to go out there and have a great match, but in the end lose and then sing Oasis songs. So I could almost tell just by the way he looked when he came out there that he wasn't going to win the title. And here, out comes Toni Storm, and I even think about it before she does it. And I said, you know what? Most of these women, they get really emotional when they come out there. When Ruby Soho debuted, she was very emotional. It was all over her face. CM Punk, same thing. When these wrestlers come in, sometimes it's just a little bit too much for them, and they almost can't help themselves. Somebody pointed out that Aaliyah did the same thing on Raw before she won the tag team titles with Raquel Rodriguez. So as Toni Storm's coming out, I said, I'm going to watch her face. If she gets choked up, that's going to tell me that she's winning the title. And sure enough, she walks 10 more feet. She stands there and she's coming down to the ring, and you can see and she's kind of looking around, and she's like just getting emotional because it's going to be a big night for her. Now, granted, the awe of the crowd and the roar of the crowd and just being in that atmosphere, even if you're not winning. I've sat in wrestling shows before in the seats and got that emotional feeling. You guys probably have too. So it can hit you at any time, but and I hate to give this advice coming from out of the mouth of somebody who's never wrestled in front of a live audience before, so take this with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, I know nothing. But my advice is to today's generation of wrestlers, try not to let your emotions give away the result of the match. As soon as Toni Storm was doing that and almost like kind of tearing up, I'm like, yep, she's winning. So it basically already confirmed what I figured would happen anyway, and that is she's going to come away with the title. Now, unfortunately, this match had to follow that great tag team match, so these women had a tall order ahead of them, but I think they did a good job. They fought hard to get this match over, even though the crowd was severely burnt out and still a little bit pissed off from that previous tag match. Hikaru Shida got injured early, beaten down, I think, up on the ramp or whatever, and she was taken away. She would wind up coming back, though. Like I said, the women kicking ass in there, trying to get the crowd back into it. I think they achieved a fair amount of that. That was going to be a tall task for any performers to achieve, but I think they did as well as they possibly could. Britt Baker gets a really cool looking near fall on Jamie Hayter, and then stands there and has to kind of decide whether or not to put her friend in the lockjaw, but she had already kind of stabbed Hayter in the back a couple of times during this match, and that's when Toni Storm comes in, and she disposes, I believe, of Britt with a DDT, and then DDT to Hayter, and again, she gave it away. That's twice she gave it away. As soon as she came in the ring, she had that little bit of extra pep in her step when she was about to hit. She just had way more energy than her previous several moves did. So she comes in the ring and boom, she nails Britt, and then she grabs Hayter. And you know how wrestlers get when they're about to win the title. They're just spazzing out, you know? And she picks up Hayter, slams her down, and even when she covered her, it reminded me of Edge winning the title for the first time at New Year's Revolution in 2006 when he cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase. And you remember when he's pinning John Cena, the way he's like moving around so much during the pin? It's because you're just overwhelmed with emotion. And I felt like Toni Storm really exposed a lot of that. She did it in her entrance. And when she was taking out Hayter and Britt, I said, I knew it. I'm like, this is the finish. She's going to win right here. Even the way she covered her, I said, that's it. She's done. She's the new champ. And she is interim AEW Women's Champion. Good for Toni Storm. This was a victory she was probably going to get anyway if she would have faced Thunder Rosa. So either way, she was getting this moment. I think that's the right call. I think they need to establish Toni Storm as one of their top world title contenders. And now you've got Britt Baker, you've got Toni Storm, you've got Thunder Rosa, you've got Jade Cargill. I think there's plenty of room for other women to get over to that level. Ruby Soho is another one that I think that should be there already. And, Athena as well, and a lot of them. So good for Toni Storm, and we'll see how long Thunder Rosa remains on the shelf. But when she comes back, they are set for a showdown. Next match is great. Jungle Boy and Christian. Let me cruise over here to the chat there for a second, though. Please continue to smash that thumbs up button for me. I would very much appreciate it. Let me make sure I get all these caught up. Spectre, I want to say thank you for the $5 again, dude. Chiming in with another one. Got a SC one more time to say, the more I hear Punk, the more I can't stand him. He was a hero of mine, why I quit drugs years ago, but wow. He came off very abrasive. I ain't going to lie. We heard that together. Like I said, I'm dying to find out what the backstory here is. I mean, he is obviously easily triggered by anything regarding Scott Colton. He yelled at that fan on Dynamite, and then he just went on a rant. That stuff's obviously been on his mind because he's constantly reading shit he doesn't like and hearing untruths, and it just boiled over. And he might have a lot of, truth in what he is saying, but he really does come off like just an angry asshole half the time. And he's shitting on VPs in the company while Tony Khan is right there. I've got a pretty good spot in my company too, but I couldn't just sit there publicly on TV and trash my coworkers with my boss sitting there. That's unprofessional. You do that behind closed doors. We can talk about anybody we want, if I'm being asked honestly by my bosses or anything like that. But in front of people and publicly and all of that, what the fuck is that about? And how is Tony Khan just, okay, well, I mean, is Tony Khan not like, put his hand on the mic and like, hey, just chill out, okay? Or whatever. And maybe just whisper in Punk's ear, like, can you pump the brakes a bit? Because this is making me uncomfortable as hell. So I'm just curious. I mean, it feels like it's in a lot of ways a free-for-all in AEW. If you're allowed to do that, could you imagine anybody in WWE after WrestleMania one year sitting next to Vince McMahon and calling Bruce Pritchard a fucking moron and Kevin Dunn a piece of shit and all this stuff, even though those things might be true, to publicly do that? Well, Vince would be like, what the hell? God damn it, son. I couldn't even imagine. So this is all fascinating to me, and we'll see if it's part of a storyline or we don't know. I don't know anyway. Maybe you guys know. I don't know shit, so don't ask me. Luigi DeRog Gaming, appreciate the $2. TK needs to get these pay-per-view lengths under control. We talked about that earlier. I don't think for a company that doesn't run a pay-per-view every month, a 4-hour show is that bad. It was 4 hours. They ended right at the top of the hour with the MJF reveal. Now, you had the hour pre-show, so that's 5 hours, but that should be pretty standard, I think. I'm cool with 4-hour shows if it's a major pay-per-view. I'm fine with 4-hour SummerSlams or Royal Rumbles or WrestleManias, and with AEW, you want to do some all-outs or double or nothings and load those cards up. I'm cool with it. Maybe make your other pay-per-views a little less long. And, of course, we have the themed TV shows. But Tony Khan trying to give out as many pay-per-view spots to his talent as possible within a 4-hour span is not really something that I consider a problem in AEW. I think longer shows have been a problem in WWE in the past where we've gone really long, but I just don't think 4 hours is that bad. Now, if they would have gone 5 hours tonight and then you add the pre-show and then you're talking 6, I get it. That's kind of long, but I just, as a fan, don't really have a problem with a 4-hour pay-per-view. I don't, especially when you only get 4 big ones. How many does AEW have? Revolution, Double or Nothing, Full Gear, and All Out. Is that 4? Yeah. See, now if they're doing 4-hour pay-per-views every month, Luigi, totally agree. 4-hour pay-per-views 4 times a year. Are we really complaining about that? Apparently we are, because you're not the only one. A lot of people have things to say about the length of the show. And, I'm kind of I agree and disagree at the same time. Oh, Mike, you sent me another one on the Twitters, or that might have been the one from earlier. John Alba, our friend, is in the media scrum. He says, Tony Khan says it's a dicey situation with what is going on with the EVPs. He still believes the elite are significant contributors behind the scenes and in front of the camera. Well, AEW, they did grow to a pretty large rate pretty quick. Once WWE did the mass releases, during the pandemic and stuff, and it opened up a shit ton of Hall of Fame talent just waiting to be signed, and AEW was able to go through that really brief and strong expansion period where they took in a lot of talent and grew and were doing pretty good numbers in terms of attendance and pay-per-view buys and sellouts and things like that. They grew big. Maybe it's not a good idea to have people with no business and EVP experience being this way. If the company was going to remain smaller, and it didn't grow so fast, then these can be people that can be integral parts backstage. But yeah, I think once they started becoming, big time and they're on cable TV, yeah, I just don't think it's ever good to have active talent in executive positions, especially if they don't have any experience doing any of this stuff. So maybe Punk has just, had some frustration with that. So can't wait to hear the story on this. Where'd we leave off? Oh, Jungle Boy and Christian. Boy, it's taking forever to get through these results. We still have several matches to talk about. What's next? Oh, no, we only have 3. No, 4. We still have 4 matches to get into. We're up to Jungle Boy and Christian next. I really like this. This was great. I did predict Christian to win. The reason I predicted Christian to win, because he's Christian. He is going to have some trick up his sleeve. And to quote myself, Christian's going to win because something's going to happen. I was like, something's going to happen. Something is going to happen. And Christian makes his entrance. Jungle Boy comes out next, and he acts like, he's got a big surprise for Christian, and he comes out of the babyface tunnel, and he looks behind him, and Luchasaurus is not there. But then out of the other tunnel, the heel tunnel, out comes Luchasaurus from behind, nails Jungle Boy, grabs him by the throat, and delivers the gnarliest choke slam on one of those steel gratings that I've ever seen. And to the point where Jungle Boy, I mean, that thing had zero give whatsoever to it. Jungle Boy hit it, bounced a little bit, and he left like grill marks on his back. It was the roughest looking bump. Now, Jungle Boy's, I believe, mom and sister, is that who those two women were in the front row? Christian was fucking with them during his entrance, and he got bitch slapped for his efforts. So they had to watch poor Jungle Boy go through this beating by Luchasaurus. So he's officially heel again. I was a little confused on the decision to do that, because he was turned heel, but since he never really attacked Jungle Boy, we thought that maybe we were speculating that he could actually be playing Christian and go back to being face. So when he did that, it felt kind of predictable. But then it also felt predictable that he could go back the other way, because he never really did shed the dark gear. I think they even kind of repackaged him a little bit, gave him some darker gear, gave him new music. So he was either going to be, evil Luchasaurus, or he's going to be baby face Luchasaurus with a darker or more edgy gimmick. So I like his new look, and I'm glad that that's here to stay. And I think he deserves a shot at being a heel. And he attacked Jungle Boy, kicked his ass, choke slammed him on that steel, then picked him up, walked him all the way to ringside, and then put him through the table at ringside. So he was just destroyed. He was just laying there for Christian, and Luchasaurus just basically presented Jungle Boy's lifeless body to him. Christian hits him with a spear immediately once the match starts, because Jungle Boy had the choice whether or not to continue the match, and even his family were like, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this. He's like, I want to do it. So the ref's like, okay, ring the bell. He eats a spear immediately, but he kicks out. So a near fall. Jungle Boy's not going to die quite yet. I was worried that we would get a long match here. I kind of didn't want one. Once I saw how they were going to do this, I said, Christian's got to win, and win quick. It's a big card. You got to remember, like we said, 15 matches on this thing, 11 on the main card. There is nothing wrong with getting one done quick. So I had no issue with that. After Jungle Boy kicked out of the spear, Christian set him up for the kill switch, hit it, no kicking out of that, and Christian is your winner. I loved everything about that. I'm a big Christian fan. I love Christian as a professional wrestler because he's had such an interesting road himself. Edge is the story we always talk about. He was even recently chronicled in those A&E biographies, which was really good. But Christian's got a great story too. And Christian, being the being the Jannetty of the group, or maybe the lesser of the two in terms of marketability and and that sort of thing, he still paved his own way, and he still made a great career for himself. And in a lot of ways in the ring, a lot of people thought Christian was better than Edge, had better fundamentals. He is always in great shape, and he's evolved a lot on the mic too. From when he came in as a babyface, he couldn't talk at all. Then you got the crazy off-the-wall charismatic shit he was doing with Edge and Christian in the 5-second poses. Then he became more of the jealous brother heel, and then he went to TNA and made his own way there, came back, won the World Heavyweight title when he had that feud with Randy Orton, and became a different type of character on the mic, and really evolved his style in the ring and on the mic, and just became an all-around great performer. He can talk, he can work, and he can tell stories. What else do you want? To me, he has value anywhere he goes, and based on his age and the fact that he's already retired once before, and he's wrestling at a great level, and he, like I said, he's got a little bit of that R-Truth in him and a little bit of that Sheamus in him, where he really looks great for his age, and he's great physically, and I'm a big Christian fan, so I'm glad he won here. And I think that AEW, like I said, is setting up for a pretty good amount of rematches for that Grand Slam show. I already think that the Acclaimed could be setting up to win the tag team titles on that show, and you will probably want to do some sort of a return of Jungle Boy and Christian with some sort of a stipulation involved. Maybe we cage Luchasaurus and send his dinosaur ass up top in a shark cage over the ring while Jungle Boy and Christian have a match. Maybe it can be a last man standing or something a little bit more vicious, because Jungle Boy has even more revenge to get now, and now he needs to get some revenge on Luchasaurus. So Jungle Boy's already in a big bit of trouble here with Christian. So if they are going to do a return match, and the whole point here is to make Jungle Boy, when it's over, in the blow-off, then that could be something you could set up either for Arthur Ashe or all the way down at the next pay-per-view somewhere. But Jungle Boy and Christian will meet again. That is for sure. Up next was Lionheart, Chris Jericho, taking on the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. This was a fun match. I think they probably would have benefited more if this match took place earlier on in the card. I thought it came a little bit late. We had already seen a lot of crazy shit by this point and a lot of great action. Jericho, we have to remember, is 88 years old, and he's not quite the Jericho that he was. So it was a little bit of a slower-paced match. A lot of mat wrestling here. A lot of Lionheart moves. Was cool to see Jericho wearing that gear. Just takes me back, man. That was one of the, I think that might have been the first gear I ever saw Jericho wrestle in, was that yellow and black shit he was wearing tonight. I mean, that's old school Jericho. That's like 95 Jericho. So that was cool to see the throwback and everything. And I did like the match based on the fact that I thought they were in a tough spot with its placement. Most fans were starting to get tired by this point. We were ready for that main event. We had seen so much great action before that I thought maybe the pace of this match might tire out the crowd a little bit, but they did a really good job. They beat the shit out of each other. Jericho really looked weathered by the end of this thing. I did not pick him to win, although I'm not surprised that he did. Danielson really... he had Jericho out-wrestled for the most part here. William Regal, it should be noted, was ringside with Danielson for this, I believe. Or no, he was on commentary, I think. And Danielson locked in a couple of cattle mutilation submissions that Jericho was able to escape. And in the end, much like Christian in the earlier match, Jericho uses his cagey heelness to low blow poor Danielson when Aubrey wasn't looking, and then bam, immediate Judas effect right to the face, and he beats Bryan Danielson. So I'm hoping again we get some sort of a return here and Danielson can get his win back. I need to see Danielson at some point involved in the world title situation. When you hear about all of this drama and turmoil in AEW, I really think that once the MJF and CM Punk issue runs its course, you really think about putting guys like Danielson and Adam Cole at the top of your company until things cool down with the turmoil. Everything that CM Punk said tonight in that scrum is extremely interesting. It does not sound like things are wonderful behind the scenes and they got a lot of problems, and maybe they need to repair things a little bit, by putting their championships or featuring more well-liked people because Danielson and Cole, I don't think anybody would complain about either one of those guys walking around with championships in AEW. So hopefully Danielson will get himself on track as well and become a part of the world title picture sometime between now and early 2023. Six-man match again, the third one of the night. This is going to be House of Black taking on Miro, Sting, and Darby Allin. Lots of rumors and speculation surrounding Malachi Black. Over the past several days, word was making the rounds that he had asked for his release. That was denied. Some reports claimed he had asked for his release citing mental health issues. Others were reporting that he could be getting some time off. Others have reported that everything between him and AEW has now been smoothed over and we're all good to go. Don't really know what's going on, but he did take the pin in the Trios tournament. And here in this match, I think a lot of fans were thinking about that. So Malachi Black and Sting, the match was okay. Miro was doing his thing in there. I love Miro. But I was starting to, at that point, set up for the stream, so I was kind of eyeballing it here. But I did finally see how they did the face-off between Malachi Black and Sting, which they have been teasing a little bit on TV. They come face-to-face in the ring, and Sting spits mist in Malachi Black's face. He goes down, and Darby Allin then wraps him up in whatever the name of that pinning combination is that he uses, and pins Malachi Black for the win. And to me, what happened between Sting and Malachi didn't feel like a progression in their story. That felt like Sting spitting him in the face and Darby pinning him. Like their issue doesn't even need to continue at this point. And it got a lot of people talking that maybe he is on his way out of the company. Maybe he just said, I don't want to be here. And he has cited a relationship issues as well, or reasons, maybe not issues, but reasons, because we know that he is married to Zelina Vega. And we all expected at one point Zelina to come in. It was kind of like a botch on their part, if I remember. because when Malachi was let go, WWE fucked up by not converting his 30-day NXT notice into a 90-day main roster one, and it allowed him to sign with AEW right away. And then Zelina Vega had signed back with WWE during this as well, and I think the thought was that she was either going to join Malachi in AEW, or maybe Malachi and her would stick back in WWE, and somehow something overlapped there, and they found themselves working for different companies. And I wonder for anybody who's in a relationship with these two companies, if you're married and one person works in AEW and the other one works in WWE, that has to be hard. That absolutely has to be hard, but you absolutely also have to know that going in when you sign these things. Moxley and Renee Paquette were doing the same thing for a short time there when Renee was still in WWE. Britt Baker and Adam Cole, even though I don't believe that they're married, but there are a lot of relationships that cross over. Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews. Who else dates in the two companies? Andrade and Charlotte, who are married. That's another one. So maybe Malachi realizes that it's going to be tough to maintain a marriage under this environment, and he wants his release so he can go back to WWE. And this is kind of that weird area here. WWE has gone through the same thing, where guys like Ali or Roderick Strong or maybe somebody else asks for the release and they're denied, and a lot of the fans are pissed because why wouldn't you release these guys? You're not using them. They've spent the last 2.5 years in catering. They can't eat any more steak. So why would you keep them around, just to be assholes? And so a lot of fans, of course, easily conflate things. So as soon as the Malachi Black rumors were happening, they immediately think it's the exact same thing as Ali or Roderick Strong. No, it's not, because in some situations in WWE, and in a lot of situations in WWE, the people asking for the release are people not being featured, that the fans barely even know exist, not by any fault of their own. They're great pieces of talent that just simply aren't being used. Brody Lee, famously, when he was still Luke Harper in WWE, wanted his release, and they jerked him the fuck around for months before finally just cutting him loose like they should have done all along. It wouldn't have mattered to them in any way. They were simply keeping him around just to be dicks. Malachi Black, however, is on TV every week for the most part. He does have a faction. He is featured. I don't think he's currently being featured in AEW necessarily any worse than he was being featured in WWE. Seems like he has pretty good hands-on involvement with his character and presentation and his look and his gear and how he does things. But maybe with Triple H taking over, he sees an opportunity now. Well, if I could have been used properly over there, I wouldn't have left, or I wouldn't have even signed here. But, when they let him go, he took a great contract, apparently signed a 5-year deal. So maybe now he's like, well, I feel like I wouldn't have to worry creatively so much now being there. Plus, I would be with my wife. I think I would be happier if I was there. I have to hope if I go to my boss and ask for my release that he will do the right thing and give me what I want, or not, hold me against my will if I don't really want to be here. And all that matters in this situation is that Malachi Black is happy and healthy and everything's fine with his mental health. So anything that I'm about to say here, don't confuse this with me having any issue with Malachi Black at all. But you have to wonder, in situations in the future when you have wrestling companies or anywhere right now, and momentum shifts like we just saw, for the past couple of years, WWE has been making us all barf, and AEW has been doing a tremendous job. For wrestling fans who need that alternative, need something other than Vince, and just need something more than that repetitive, redundant, overly produced shit that we're fed every Monday and every Friday. Give us something more, please. Please give us something more. So they did. AEW gave us that, and it's been great. But now, WWE, Vince McMahon scandal, he goes away. Triple H takes control. Triple H had a great track record from NXT, and now it looks like the momentum might be shifting in their direction to where all of a sudden they are the most attractive place to work, because this is all coinciding with all the turmoil and drama news going on in AEW. So when you combine Triple H now being in charge with apparently the backstage environment in AEW being like whatever high school the Mean Girls went to, I think that it could be more attractive to go there. And if you're somebody like Malachi Black, who maybe already is struggling with some mental health stuff, he misses his wife or he's not getting enough time at home, that adds and compounds it. And I wouldn't blame him or anybody else that wanted to get out of that situation, just like I wouldn't blame anybody who wanted to get out of that situation in WWE, because I think there was a very bad toxic environment in their locker room in one time in recent history as well, especially when you combine that with talent being frustrated about how they're being used. Now you're hearing that stuff in AEW. So my point is, when the momentum shifts like this, and it could shift again, there will be a honeymoon phase with Triple H that will, trust me, mark my words, end. That's the way wrestling fans work. So the honeymoon will end with Triple H. AEW could redeem themselves in another year or so, and then they are now, kind of in the driver's seat a little bit better, and they've cleaned up their act, just like WWE's cleaned up theirs. So my question is that, since now we finally reached a point in society, as we should, where we take mental health seriously, and that's not something that should be blown off or brushed off at all, and it's extremely important for every single person alive to have good mental health. And I think we're most aware and conscious of that now more than we have ever been. So do you think people, and I'm not saying Malachi is doing this, so please, goddamn, don't take it the wrong way, but do you think there are or could be people out there that would use that to their advantage if they wanted to get out of one contract and say, I kind of want to go over there. If I just cite mental health, they're going to look like assholes for not letting me go. Or they could call your bluff. Oh, you have mental health issues? I will pay for any therapy you want. Well, shit, I don't want to go to therapy. I just want out of my contract so I can go to WWE. Or maybe vice versa, or they go to Triple H and tell them the same thing. I just want out of my contract so I can go to AEW. Are there people that might try to manipulate that? Saying I've been struggling with depression and, or whatever, or maybe my therapist suggested that, I leave wrestling, or can I get a release or something like that. I think that in today's day and age, you would look like a pretty big asshole if somebody's coming to you and saying, look, my mental health is in really bad shape. I think I want to leave, the business, and can you please give me my release? I want to continue working. My wife works, of course, as you know, for WWE, and I really miss her, and it's straining our marriage. Can you let me go? And at that point, it's just a matter of what kind of person Tony Khan wants to be, just like what kind of person Vince McMahon wants to be. Tony Khan's got to think about his business. Well, Malachi, I've invested a lot in you, and I've paid you a lot, and I'm just going to let you unconditionally go. Is this going to set a precedent for everybody else who's now, might want to come to me? You got to do the right thing. You got to do the right thing for Malachi. You also got to do the right thing for yourself. So it just depends. Malachi Black could have also been one of the people that WWE quote unquote tampered with. He has that connection with WWE because his wife is there. So maybe they used her as a middleman to talk to Malachi Black, because they can't stop you from doing that. How can they police that? What if somebody in WWE management, just said, hey, when you go home, mention to your husbands, if he can figure out a way out of that contract, we'd love to have him back. Who's to stop him from doing that? How can you even, Zelina would have to rat out her own fucking husband if it was going to get to that point. She would have to tell him, or I'm sorry, he would have to rat out his wife if she told him that, and then he was like, oh my God, WWE's tampering with me, and then he goes right to work the next day. You know what my wife told me? So I don't know. I don't know what the hell, but maybe, Malachi is one of those guys that they, were looking to lure back. But if he's having trouble or any sort of mental struggles at all, or relationship struggles, the only thing we want for him is the best, because he is one of my favorite pieces of talent in wrestling, regardless of what company he's in. I believe he should be a world title contender. I feel bad for him that it hasn't worked out yet. He had success in NXT, but once you get moved up to the main roster when Vince McMahon is in charge, it doesn't matter what the fuck you do in NXT. So he left. Now he's locked into that 5-year deal in AEW, and maybe he's having second thoughts, or he wants to change and he wishes he could. And it sucks that once you put your pen down on a piece of paper, you're a prisoner for 5 years, but that's business, and that's what every wrestler has to do. So It just depends on what the situation is. Every single situation and every single wrestler, regardless of what company they're in, if they ask for a release, everybody's going to have a different set of circumstances. No set of circumstances are going to be the same. And that's why everybody on Twitter is immediately it's Ali and Roderick Strong is the exact same thing as Malachi Black. All the fans that were sticking up for Ali, they better have that same energy with Malachi Black and letting him go too. It just depends on the situation. All I want was what's best for Malachi Black. I don't really care about where you lie in the tribal war. Just whatever's best for him. Whatever we can do to get him in a good place mentally, I think that's the most important thing here. And that's going to be between him and his family and Tony Khan. And we will just see where he lands. But based on the last couple of jobs he has done, getting pinned here in this match on the pay-per-view, he might be on his way out. Very well could be. Anyway, it is time now for the main event. Jon Moxley defending the AEW title against CM Punk. Of course, this is the return match from the squash they had a couple of Dynamites ago where Moxley absolutely annihilated Punk for the title. And then last week on Dynamite, they did the deal where Ace Steel came out and grabbed the contract and slapped CM Punk into oblivion and psyched him up and made him take this match. And Punk cut the great promo in the Chicago crowd, setting up everything here for this big babyface come-from-behind hometown victory that many people were thinking we would wind up seeing. I was going to be very interested in the beginning of this match because if this match went past the 3-minute mark, then, I felt it was probably going to be a legitimate match. But I definitely was still considering Moxley just doing the same thing to CM Punk that he did a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't expecting to see CM Punk do that to him, which we did wind up almost seeing. CM Punk came out with the long white trunks, which basically told us that he was going to bleed because blood looks very good on white. And once the men made their way to the ring and the announcements were done, CM Punk sticks his leg right out, showing Jon Moxley come and get it, taunting him, so to speak. Much better body language with CM Punk this time, and he doesn't seem to be shaken. And I was worried based on the story they told on Dynamite, the way his foot gave out on him like that. I'm like, how is this guy going to have a competitive match at All Out? How is he going to be magically healed within 10 days? The power of the promo has healed his bones together somehow, and that is a little weird for me. That's why I thought we were going to see, honestly, a bigger swerve than what we saw here tonight. But the cool thing I thought that they did in this match was once the bell rang and they started the brawl, CM Punk actually hits an extremely early GTS on Jon Moxley in less time than Moxley had ended CM Punk a couple of weeks ago, and he got a very close near fall on Moxley. I thought that Punk might have it there. And I was like, wow, what if they do that? What if it's a replay of what they did a couple of weeks ago, only it's Punk doing the squashing, not Moxley? I think that would be really shocking for the crowd, and maybe you could even set up MJF coming in right then and challenging what is essentially a fresh CM Punk to a match right there. But Mox kicked out, so that wasn't going to happen. And then they start brawling through the crowd. Punk gets busted open just within a few minutes, probably 10 minutes in or less. Punk is busted open. And that's when Jon Moxley takes control. A lot of brawling, a lot of submissions, a lot of elbows into the neck, a lot of rear naked chokes, just a lot of beating the piss out of each other in the ring, which was fun to watch because I was excited originally to see a match between these two guys. We didn't get much of one when they did it on Dynamite, but here we're actually getting a match, a competitive match with these two guys beating the hell out of each other, and I thought it was really good. I thought the match was good. Punk has had good matches in the company. He was never great physically, even in his prime, but I think he's maintained enough of it to where he's able to tell stories in the ring in other ways, and I thought the match here he had with Moxley was really good. So Mox is in control for a while. Punk, a little back and forth. Once Punk regains control, really cool spot when he goes up for his typical Randy Savage elbow, only when he comes down, Mox spins in position and just catches him in a choke, which was great that CM Punk is able to counter. He's put back in it, and I think eventually he makes it to the ropes. Now, we get our first, and what I thought was going to be our only, Death Rider. Moxley hits Punk with it. Very similar position to where he hit it on Dynamite when he pinned him. 1, 2, big near fall. Kick out at the last minute by CM Punk. So the move that put him down in the last match, he survives this time. Punk winds up rolling through a choke that Moxley has on him and is able to lift Mox up and hit him with a GTS, but they're kind of over by the ropes, by the turnbuckle, and Mox takes the GTS, he hits the ropes and he bounces back, and at this point Punk is on his knees and he basically falls on CM Punk, and he's just laying on Punk, almost like unconscious. So he's in GTS position based on the way he's laying on him. So Punk catches his breath, couple of deep breaths, and lifts Moxley up again. GTS number 2, 1, 2, 3, brand new AEW champion. CM Punk wins the title in a scenario that when it was originally presented to me, I said no. A couple of weeks ago when this happened, we were talking about Dynamite. I said, if the plan is to have CM Punk have the rematch with Moxley, face him as a babyface that's not 100% with a broken foot and claws and scratches and fights his way to the championship, that's not something I would do based on all of the backstage turmoil that's going on with CM Punk and his overall public opinion right now. It's going to be really hard, even in Chicago. Well, Chicago will be fine. But it's going to be really hard for fans really to appreciate him in that way. They don't love him the way they love Bryan Danielson. Chicago loves him. Punk has his fans, but you're never going to see somebody like Bryan Danielson or Adam Cole say the type of shit that Punk was saying tonight on that media scrum. So I wasn't sure, based on overall public opinion of Punk right now, if giving him that babyface moment is what you want to do. So I thought he would turn heel, and then maybe MJF would come back as a babyface on TV in a couple of weeks. Or, Punk would have to cheat. He's going to come to some sort of a realization during the match that he can't get the job done, so he's going to cheat to do it, and then he's going to heel on the crowd on the mic afterwards and tell them all to fuck off, basically do the opposite of what Drew McIntyre did yesterday in Cardiff. And I thought it would take something like that for the victory to be okay, but they went through with it exactly the way the story was telling us it was going to end. It's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily great either. But I do think it's cool that CM Punk is now a 2-time AEW champion. I was there for the first one live, watched him win the title at Double or Nothing, and watching him win it here was pretty cool. And Punk is certainly what a WWE calls Cena. He's a polarizing figure, and he's polarizing his ass off apparently tonight during that media scrum, which I'm sure we will continue to get information on. But then we got to get to the end of the show. Punk wins the title. He's celebrating, and I'm tweeting. I'm like, is this it, or do we get Mr. Mask Man? And sure enough, as Punk's celebrating, the lights go out. And I'm like, here it is. This is it. How is he going to be revealed? I thought they were going to come up and he'd be in the ring and then unmask or something like that. But instead, with the lights off, we get this audio of, I guess, what is a voicemail on what sounds to be like an 80s or 90s answering machine, because you hear the beep and you hear Tony Khan's voice. At first I thought it was CM Punk's voice, but it was Tony Khan's voice apparently leaving a message on MJF's answering machine saying, look, we have to resolve this. Your absence is hurting the company. So here it is. Here's my final offer. I will book you for All Out. You can be in the casino ladder match. I will pay you. And he announces the dollar amount, but that part's bleeped out. And it's basically Tony Khan begging MJF, or basically making one final offer for MJF to accept. And then it shoots to a clip from the old Ring of Honor days where CM Punk says the same quote that MJF said earlier on in the year about the best trick that ever pulled is convincing everybody he didn't exist. They say that at the end of, I think, Usual Suspects. And Punk has said it in the past. MJF said it before in their feud. And when MJF came out during the casino ladder match, of course, he came out to Sympathy for the Devil from Rolling Stones. Put all those pieces together. That's what you're going to get. You knew once you heard the voicemail it was going to be MJF. Then you see the masked figure with his back turned. He takes off the mask. You see the hair, and you reveal the Burberry scarf, which was great. And You knew he was going to be there in person too, and sure enough, his music hits. He comes out to the stage, and to be honest, this is kind of where I was hoping we would get a little bit more. I was expecting, because MJF is very intense. Last time we saw MJF, think of the promo he was cutting in LA. He was screaming, red-faced, veins bulging out of his neck, mad when he was cutting this promo. And he came out kind of subdued here. I was expecting a scenario where he comes through the crowd, scoots under the ring, nails CM Punk with a DDD or some move or something like that. Yeah, yeah. And he's screaming at the crowd. Crowd's reacting. He's climbing the ropes. And maybe he even gets on the promo or gets on the mic and cuts a quick promo. I'm back, motherfuckers, and I'm going to take you down, CM Punk, or whatever, and throws the mic down and stands over CM Punk, holding up the title while you fade to black. And I thought that would be the way he would come back. But instead, he just made his return to the stage and just had a stare down with Punk. There was nothing in the ring. I'm glad they didn't go through the match because a lot of fans were thinking, oh, he could cash in his casino chip at the end and then walk out of All Out as champion. I thought that would be a little bit much. Not that AEW doesn't have a tendency to overbook things from time to time. I thought that specific scenario would be a little bit much if they did that. Let Punk have this moment on its own because you have a lot more shows. You got Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe. You got more pay-per-views this year. You have places to do Punk and MJF, and if you had Punk win the title only to lose it, only to win the title again, only to lose it right away again, that would be weird. You would be building a two-time champion with no successful title defenses whatsoever. So let's have Punk have a little bit of a run here, and then you build to the MJF match, and maybe that's when you do it. Is Punk going to really pass the torch or pass the belt to MJF whenever that happens? I almost think you might have to survive the first one, and maybe you set yourself up here for the ultimate double turn. You set yourself up here for a Brett and Austin WrestleMania 13 double turn, because what was the the catalyst for Brett's heel turn all those years ago? He started getting a little ornery on the mic, and he started saying some shit that you don't normally say. He started calling out other baby faces on the roster and talking shit about them and that sort of thing. And he started to publicly condemn WWE for the smut content and the racy sexual stuff that they were doing. And finally then, when he goes nuts on Raw, and frustrated isn't the goddamn word for it, and this is bullshit, and he's calling everybody out, and he's punching Pat Patterson, by the time you get to WrestleMania, man, the fans were wanting that. Plus Austin, how was he getting over? How was he getting attention? By his work on the mic and shit like that. There are some similarities here. So you could set yourself up, in a situation where Punk is champion, he's facing MJF, and he's got MJF in that triangle submission of his, and MJF won't tap out, and he passes out, but he's probably busted open too. And so you got MJF there laying unconscious. Punk is cinching back. You got MJF's blood all over his face, all over Punk's arm, and he's refusing to quit. He passes out. Referee stops the match, just like WrestleMania 13. Punk retains the title. He continues the attack on MJF and continues to attack him until maybe somebody backs off Punk. And then Punk leaves and he celebrates, and MJF lays there by himself in the ring, kind of coming to, blood all over his face, doesn't know what happened, and the fans are just, and just like Austin, refusing help from the referee, he's going to go to the back and he's going to take his pride with him, and he's just hobbled his ass, one step at a time, all the way to the back. Ultimate double turn. I mean, you don't want to rehash it exactly the way they did at WrestleMania 13, but you can take parts of that and elements of that and do something like that if you want. The table is set. CM Punk is being a monumental douchebag right now any chance he gets on the mic. How is this guy on TV being presented as a babyface? And how long can this last? So at some point you feel like they could do something like that, but in terms of what they did here, I maybe honestly wanted a little bit more. I wanted an MJF attack. We didn't get that. He stayed back. It looks like he's got some backup. I don't know if those were hired guns for one night for Stokely Hathaway and his crew, or if he's a part of that crew. And that crew is built to protect him. And it's going to be Punk against all those guys. I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe Moxley in the Blackpool Combat Club come to Punk's aid to battle MJF, Hathaway, and all these guys. Ever think about that? It would finally put Danielson and Punk together and sort of in, in some sort of an angle or storyline, hopefully, that they can move on to later. The good thing here is we have possibilities. There's a lot they can do. But I was maybe hoping with a little bit more from MJF tonight, and a couple of the outcomes, of course, were controversial. Overall, still a spectacular night of wrestling. I'm going to grade it. I'm going to grade it a C+. No, I'm going to give it a B-. I'm going to give it a B-. I'm going to go up to B. I can't give AEW pay-per-views a C. To me, a B- is a bad show for them. So to their standards, like I said, I think this is their 15th pay-per-view that they've done. I've never once been disappointed. I'm still not disappointed, but I do think this was one of their weaker shows. So we'll see what the internet says about it and if I'm in the minority there or not. But overall, AEW comes through again with a lot of stuff that's going to keep us talking, and Wednesday is looking pretty good. By the way, after Jericho beat Danielson, the Jericho Appreciation Society came out, and Daniel Garcia did not. There was a promo, or an interview, later on the show where Garcia was being asked, why didn't you go out there? And he goes, because Jericho. And Jericho approached him and says, you didn't come out there and join in the celebration. What gives? And he was, Jericho, I love you, but I told you that I would only do that if you won without cheating, and you had to cheat, so it disappointed me. That's why I didn't come out there. But Garcia has got a match against Wheeler Yuta on Wednesday for the Ring of Honor Pure title. So Jericho tells him, since you didn't come out there and support us, we're not going to support you on Wednesday. And it was weird to hear Garcia be like, no, come on, please, Jericho, I need you. This is the biggest night of my career. I need you there. And Jericho's like, well, you weren't there for me, so fuck you. So Garcia is on his own against Wheeler Yuta. That might inch him closer to being a Blackpool member than a JAS member. We will see. But that is on tap for Wednesday. I'm sure we're going to hear from CM Punk, and I'm sure we're going to hear from MJF, and we'll find out if there's more to that story, with him and Tony Khan and the voice message and all that. We'll see, how they play into that once the time comes. But I'll cruise back to the chat here since it's been a pretty long review tonight. It is pretty late at night, 2:30 in the morning for some of you on the East Coast. And that means we've been going for over 2 hours on this review. That's kind of a long time for us. We don't often go that long, but we are here doing that. So let me cruise to the chat. Where'd we go? Knock out any more questions we might have. Talk to the channel members. Things like that. Right on. We're caught up with the Super Chats. Okay, good. So we are all good there. Oh, Hollywood guy. I missed my Super Chat. My laptop died. If you are still here, which one were you? Let me read that again. Oh, yeah. Hello, Greg. What? Oh, yeah. My opinion on Aleister Black. Okay, so we did talk about that. We talked about Malachi and all of that when we got to that match. So you probably heard those opinions, Hollywood, most likely. Hopefully you did. Fightful dropped a story. Thank you. Let's cruise over there. Let's do a little internet looking here. Ho, ho. This headline from Fightful Select, I'm a proud $10 member, says major heat on CM Punk from Media Scrum, rumors of threatened walkouts. Let's see what this says here. This is from Fightful Select on Patreon. CM Punk garnered an incredible amount of heat for his comments at the AEW All Out post-show scrum. For the record, Fightful originally reported the Punk Cabana news this year, and we've never spoken to Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks outside of interviews. The story emerged from talent frustrated and under the impression that Punk and Cabana's ill will towards one another cost the well-liked Cabana a job he was enjoying. Tony Khan denied that this was the reason this past week. Cabana eventually got put on ROH duty. We're told that Cabana had indicated, We're told that Cabana had indicated to Khan before Punk's injury. Let me read that sentence again. We're told that Cabana had indicated to Khan before Punk's original return that he'd likely not be happy working there if Punk was in the company. CM Punk garnered an incredible amount of heat for his comments at the post-show scrum. That is just a repeat of the same sentence. Okay, Punk ran down his history with Colt Cabana and targeted Hangman Page and EVPs, Kenny Omega and Young Bucks. Punk said Hangman Page went into business for himself and almost compromised a huge AEW gate, and said the EVPs leaked info. Immediately after the scrum rant, talent had informed Fightful that Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks were extremely pissed off, and one claimed that they were threatening to walk over the comments. Fightful Select, but this is quick typing here. There's some typos in here. Fightful Select had heard prior that at least one of the Young Bucks had been in contact with talent outside of WWE, indicating many of the rumors heard about Punk and the frustration around him were true. We're told the Elite were scheduled for the scrum, but an adjustment was made. Around then, security went around the scrum area in a hurry. We haven't learned if that was in relation to the situation, but all of this information filtered in at the same time. We're obviously cognizant of a work in this type of situation, but talent that were contacted were under the impression the situation was that of a real one. Because, of course, everybody's, oh, it's a work, it's a work. One way or the other, we'll work to learn details and try to confirm. The heat between Punk and Cabana, as well as Punk towards Hangman Page, have long been real. We know that. You can't fake that shit. Regardless of the situation, Fightful Select has already heard of several talent that are very upset with his comments. We will also work to gain some stances from those who side with him on the matters. We've also been told that some media wasn't planning on attending the scrum. We're told that they really should attend before all the drama unfolded. Okay, so let's read that sentence again. We've also been told that some media that wasn't planning on attending the scrum were told that they really should attend it before all the drama unfolded. So that implies maybe they knew some pipe bombs were going to be dropped. Tony Khan was at the media scrum throughout the entirety of this situation. So he was sitting right there. He listened to all the shit he said. And like I said earlier, I mean, even if you're the champion and you're somebody in the position of Punk, is that... I made the comparison to Vince McMahon, is that would anybody after unless it's part of an angle, after a WrestleMania, would sit there at the press conference and verbally bash all of Vince McMahon's inner circle and his most trusted confidants and, and people like that, and talk about other people in the company who you fucking hate, who's a piece of shit, who has checking accounts with his mom. Like, this is crazy. CM Punk is somebody that is beyond the age of understanding what's professional and what's not. There should be no clue at this point with what's a professional thing to do and what's not in CM Punk's mind. I think this was a lot of frustration that's boiled over. He obviously had a lot of things to say about the internet and the websites, more specifically Brian Alvarez, I think, and Dave Meltzer. He didn't specifically call out Fightful or Sean Ross Sapp or anybody like that, but he did, imply that there were some shady shit being done, and some of these EVPs were contacting and trying to leak and put stories out there. And that's a part of wrestling that didn't exist back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s. Sure, there was wrestling publications and newsletters and things like that, but nothing like you see today where it's all over the internet and there's, a few dominant sites and people can, put some things out there if they really have some sort of a personal beef and they want to affect somebody else's career, or if they want to try to, push them out or cause them to, get heat with the audience or something. You try to, do little things to get stories out there to present, that idea or that narrative. That's stuff that definitely can happen. But things do not sound great. Backstage in AEW sounds really bad. And it just blows my mind how quickly things can change. Imagine me listening myself right now 8 months ago when WWE didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Heads up their asses, while AEW, it's kumbaya backstage, everybody gets along, the wrestling is fun, the TV is fun, the pay-per-views are fun. Sure, they got some holes in their booking and some things they can do better, and a few growing pains and some shit they got to do better on. But overall, as a wrestling fan, I'm loving what they're giving to me on pay-per-view and TV. Looks like a great place to be. Looks like a fun atmosphere. Tony Khan seems like a fun boss. How quickly things can change, because that seems like the opposite now. Doesn't seem like any of that sounds true. Now Triple H is the guy that everybody's kind of drawn to and attracted to, and now Tony Khan is the guy that doesn't have the shit together, and his fucking ship is hitting iceberg after iceberg here. So this is alarming. This really is. I mean, there's people sticking around, of course. MJF is back. CM Punk is the champion again. But, and I mean, do these guys all just dress in the same locker room? I mean, is Punk going to be changing right next to the Kenny and the Bucks on Wednesday? I mean, is this going to come to a head? I mean, Punk just seems to be calling out everybody. I like the Elite. I like Hangman Page. I like the Bucks and Kenny. They're fun, especially Page. I guess I don't love the Bucks and Kenny, but I really do like Hangman Page a lot. So I don't know what goes on behind the scenes or, who's really at fault here, but I think CM Punk isn't doing himself any favors with these rants and these profanity-laced, tirades that he's going on at his age with all the years behind him in the business. And like I said, when the CM Punk drama first started, what the hell is this guy complaining about? What's he bitching about? He comes into AEW, gets paid probably an astronomical amount of money. He's been there for 1 year. He's been put over everybody he's worked with in feuds. He's won the championship twice. And I'm sure maybe it's possible that behavior by certain people or people of power in the company can annoy you or upset you, but I feel like other people in the company have got way more to complain about than CM Punk does. So that's all just interesting as hell to me. Oh my God. Wonder if all the other YouTubers are still up talking about this stuff. I don't know. But that's going to pretty much do it for tonight. I think we've been streaming now for about 2.5 hours. We don't often go this long these days on the channel, but it certainly was fun to speculate about all of this. For those of you who like to listen to these reviews in podcast form, I will have this pushed out to the podcast sites here in just a little while this evening. You can also find it on my website in a downloadable version as well. I want to thank you guys for being here on this very crazy AEW all-out review. We've learned a lot. We've discovered a lot. And it sounds like CM Punk is on one. Tony Khan is talking now, too. Man, I'm going to be looking at a lot of the videos from this media scrum. So far, these media scrums have bigger news coming out of them than the shows themselves a lot of times. So crazy times right now in wrestling, but luckily we're going to be up here talking about it tomorrow because I'll be up here for a WWE Raw review where anything new that we learn regarding CM Punk or Tony Khan or AEW, we will definitely talk about. I would appreciate it on your way out the door. If you have not hit that thumbs up button for me, please do. Hit the likes so we can get more likes. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday night or early Monday morning now, and I will catch you tomorrow night after Monday Night Raw.